And nobody in all of pod, no co-host that there is or was, is ever gonna bring me down.
I hope you're happy.
We're doing parody versions now. Is that we weren't consulted about? That's season 5. Okay, yeah. Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to another episode of Showgays, a movie musical of Showgays, a Cinemusical podcast. The podcast where we talk about cinemusicals
of all kinds.
Which now that I feel like it's Cinemusical, I feel more okay watching like a sister act, watching something that's not specifically a movie musical. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Even though it really hasn't changed, something about it now feels like we've pressed the boundaries. Yeah.
You would not believe how many people, after I've told them about this podcast, have asked me to weigh in on specific films and its qualification as a movie musical. It is something that the general population is genuinely interested in.
It's a question that everyone constantly asks, I guess.
Yeah.
What are some good ones that they ask you about?
Some good ones that they ask me about. I feel like I've gotten Cabaret before, which is like you have to be into musicals for that to be.
Yeah, to maybe know.
Does that count?
Was there a recent? I feel like there was a recent about an artist.
There's
that I got asked about
the Bob Dylan one right now with Timmy Sham.
I mean, there's always ones. There was a couple years ago. There was obviously the Bohemian Rhapsody one. There was the Elton John one.
It was something like that. Yeah. It was something like that. I think that I got asked. And then sometimes I get old school ones like Sound of Music, but that one's obviously yes. What?
Oh, obviously yes. That's obviously yes.
Yeah.
Who would think that's no?
I think or maybe I'm thinking of a different. Something else in that era. I feel like I got it. Maybe somebody was asking me if that was one that we've done but I was like, yeah, of course. So one time somebody just asked me if I'd ever seen Cabaret, and I got like personally offended at the notion that I wouldn't have.
Not only have I seen Cabaret, but I've seen All That Jazz. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I really know the lore.
Andrew couldn't remember Bob Fosse's name. He called him like Bob Finkel or something one time, and so that's my favorite thing with him is just to like try to say different variations of Bob Fosse.
Bob Fosse.
One of those Robert Finke things, you know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. RJ, how are you? You're so quiet over here.
I'm so far away. Hey guys. I'm doing great. Well, maybe not great. I'm doing okay.
What's wrong?
RJ?
What's wrong? I was really busy this week. Work's piling up. But next week is our last week of the year, and then we'll get the week off after that. So it's kind of like a rush on things. But also, I'm doing a web series for the Ampliverse next year. So I'm trying to finish the script so that we can have a table read on Sunday. So
Sunday?
Yeah.
Girl.
Tell us about it.
So,
RJ loves to work under a very intense time
I do love
constraint.
to work under pressure. It's about a YouTube mukbanger who...
Mukbang is when people who like eat food on camera.
Yeah.
Who goes to a restaurant and falls in love with the cook that's there.
Aww.
And romance.
Story.
It's a little rom-com.
Is it a boy's love?
It is a boy's love. From fans of BL to makers of BL.
Fans to creators.
Fans to producers.
Love it.
And I just got back from the restaurant today that we're about to film, that we're going to film in February, that she gave me the okay, and she's making all the food too. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah,
is it Filipino food?
Yeah, it's a local Filipino restaurant. So very excited.
Nice. Should we? I will ask Adam how he is, but I want to know: should we talk about our schedule plan?
Oh yes, about how this release, you might not see an episode after this episode
ever again,
no,
because we're also taking a year break until Wicked 2. I mean, it makes sense.
Intermission. It's intermission right now.
The longest intermission there's ever been. We decided, I feel like, did we talk about this a little bit on the podcast and then like intimate that we were going to have a conversation off pod?
Yeah.
This is our Yeah, this is our holiday spectacular. We wanted to put something out for around the holidays. If you need to save this for when you're with your family to get a little break, we understand. And then we're going to take a little off-season break. We've been doing this show for 3 years now without a break. And I was saying to the boys both that I feel like we could all use a little bit of rest time, but also I feel like with content sometimes online, if I don't have an off-season with it, I'll need to like create an off-season for myself because I'll get sick of listening to the same stuff all the time. So we're hoping it will be a bit of a absence makes the heart grow fonder situation for our listeners.
A little respite for the listeners. It's time for you to catch up because I know there are a lot of people that see the movies, but they don't get to see it. So they like hold off on listening, or they'll listen to a little bit and then hold off on watching. So now's the perfect time. Spend the winter, to watch the movies that you're like, should I watch this one? Now you can. Now you
can go back in our backlog and catch up.
Which means that the mailbox when we come back will be filled.
It's going to be filled. Stuffed.
We're so excited for there to be something in the mailbox. We do have 2 messages in the mailbox that I will read after I ask Adam how he's doing.
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Does it feel like something has changed, Adam, within you?
Within you, something is not the same.
Is something not the same?
Something's not the same. I'm through with playing by the rules of someone else's game. No, I'm fine.
It's cold.
It's cold. It's cold. I feel like I still haven't figured out the heat situation in our apartment, what the correct heat to set it at is.
Yeah.
72 is like too cold. But then 73, it'll like run a long time, and then I'm like, oh, it's too hot now. So it's hard.
Do you have a schedule option, or it's just
no, girl.
Yeah, clicky on the wall.
Since we live in an attic too, the insulation is not the best. So
I had a place in Madison that had the schedule thing, but it was very annoying because you could only set it like it assumed that there were like 4 different temperatures. You wanted it throughout the day. And I was a grad student at home during COVID. And so I needed it to be the same all the time. And to program my thermostat, I had to like go through every single time in order to, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it was really hard for you, Molly. I feel
it
bad.
was really hard for me, and I really understand what you're going through with winter because it was, let me see, what was the high
70,
today?
70.
I can't see the high from today anymore, but it's going to be 64 tomorrow. So I really get it.
That's really cold.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with over here, and so I know for you guys, winter is kind of like just a cute little thing, but like in San Diego, it's really serious. So I think you should just think about that.
We're really praying for you.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers for us.
Because doesn't the ocean like freeze over? Like doesn't the bay
completely frozen over?
Did you ice skate? Have you ice skated yet?
Yeah, we were tobogganing, wearing our toques.
Salt water is really famous for freezing really easily too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Andrew and I did have like a little bit of a spat over the question of like whether the ocean freezes over, and then I realized that like for him, freezes over is like there are chunks of ice throughout.
Oh,
we were talking about the Arctic Ocean, and I was like, no, frozen over to me is like you can walk on it.
You can walk.
That turned out to be
you
could have festivals on
You can get to that little part of Minnesota that's like technically in Canada, and you have to like cross the, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the northern triangle.
Yeah, whatever that's called. Yeah. Great. Mailbag.
Okay, so the first was from Nicole. Shout out Nicole. She says we have 2 options for her birthday next year. We did not include this.
Nicole just claims May. Nicole's like, you're picking my movies on May.
There's no option where we don't pick one of her picks. It's just these are her options. West Side Story 1961, which... Did you 2 do that? Was that an original season? Or
I think you also watched. No, you also watched.
I did
as well, didn't it?
Because that was the first season when I was trying too hard. Or
let's see if let's find out today if Molly made a closer. I bet she didn't.
I'll tell you right now. Or and this is an interesting one: Beauty and the Beast 2017.
Oh, that is fascinating. I mean, it was one of the highest grossing live actions.
It's like what is one of the highest grossing films of that year. It made like $1.2 billion.
I recall visiting Adam and RJ shortly after that film had been released and them sharing with me that they had a friend who said it was a perfect film, which I think is really something that's aged very well.
Yeah. That was Galaxy Brain. They were ahead of the time.
Yeah. Nicole also says, please sing Happy Birthday to me. And she sent this on November 15th. So she said happy early Thanksgiving, which is very sweet. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole.
She didn't say anything about how great our Showgays episode was that came out that same day?
No, she didn't.
Was that the Showgays?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Showgays. Actually, I think it came out a couple days later.
Oh, okay.
I think it came out on the 17th.
We are always on top of it.
Because we recorded on like the 14th.
Yeah. Okay, then we have an email from Lucas. It is.
Oh, God.
It is sort of long because he responded to RJ's call for listener nominees and he wrote for all of them.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Best Contemporary, Cyrano. So Lucas is in your camp, Adam.
Mm-hmm. Hey.
Best Classic, Oliver. Worst Contemporary. So he broke that down even more. Mean Girls. Worst Classic. I mean, fair though. I enjoyed myself, but I also don't think it was a great film. Worst Classic, Gigi. Best Director.
Drag the little girls.
He also wrote Gigi, parentheses, you. Best Director, Jacques Demy, Vive la France. Who is that for, though? Was that Cyrano?
That was for the Umbrellas.
Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Okay.
Umbrellas of
Cherbourg.
He gave Best Performance to Peter Dinklage in Cyrano.
I don't hate that.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. Who appears in the film we will be discussing today.
Yes. Does he appear?
Voices.
Is he heard?
He's credited in the film we're discussing today.
Best Supporting, Leland Palmer and all that jazz. Not mad about that either.
Oh, yeah.
But despite giving Mean Girls Worst Contemporary, did give the VIP/MVP to Renee Rapp in her powerhouse vocals.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Teaching award goes to Noodle, teaching Willie the difference between a vowel and a consonant. The Susan Sontag Award, John Waters' direction of Crybaby. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Was that this season? That was Crybaby this season, or was it last season?
Oh, because that was Nicole's birthday.
That was the Nicole pick.
Oh, yes. How could I forget? Okay. Catholicism Award goes to the 500 Chocoholic Monks. You know how I feel about that picture of Catholicism. So, the Dream Sequence Award.
Molly was don't forget, Molly was extremely offended by
I was extremely offended. So mad about it.
Tradcath Molly.
Tradcath Molly. The Dream Sequence Award goes to 50% of all that jazz. The lip sync performance, which actually I can't believe that we forgot about this one. Avantika and the truly off lip sync mix of Sexy and Mean Girls.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about that performance. We loved her in that. So
loved her in that.
Should have gotten a shout out in the showies. The best dubbed performance was Kathy Green, the young woman who dubbed the voice of Oliver Twist, or Ozzy Osbourne as the voice of the Green Fairy.
Oh, that's so good. I forgot about Ozzy.
Yeah.
Wait. Ozzy does
Kylie Minogue as the Green Fairy.
He does the voice, but Kylie's the face of the Green Fairy.
Oh my God, I didn't realize that. Okay. Then he talks about some lip syncing musicals, which include 1981's Pennies from Heaven and more recently 2005's Romance and Cigarettes. I don't know either one of those. Do you guys know those?
No. I know All Dogs Go to Heaven.
That's a great film. Both are surprisingly dark takes on the movie musical genre with all the actors lip syncing to old tracks. It's kind of a bizarre experience for musical fans, but still worthy of your coverage. Very interesting now that we are a Cinemusical podcast.
Right.
Yes. The rebrand.
Due to Lucas.
Was he the one that said that?
I think he
brought up Cinemusical.
He may have.
Oh, great. We're not paying you, by the way.
You're not getting royalties,
you're not getting a
Lucas.
damn cent. If we're not getting a cent, you're not getting a cent.
So if I hear anything, I'm ready with a cease and desist ready to mail out.
We're just gonna have to spell Cinemusical in a different way. We're gonna add like a hidden
I don't
H.
think Lucas was claiming that he invented the term. I think.
Okay,
you never know.
Keeping our ponies in a row or something.
Listen, I'm gonna make an assumption here, but these grubby little gays, you can't trust them.
Yipes. Okay. In the past, while discussing West Side Story, you posited a Steven Spielberg Guys and Dolls remake, which you thought would need a Kushner level rewrite. Do you have any thoughts on the recently announced remake from Rob Marshall? He's done some good work. I actually like his take on Little Mermaid, but also some total trash. I'm hopeful an updated script and some diverse casting can help it succeed. I just hope it's not edited to death with constant choppy cuts like 9.
We probably should also consider the Little Mermaid remake too.
Oh yeah. How do I feel about a Rob Marshall?
Molly's thrilled about that idea.
Molly's like, oh, can't wait.
Molly's like, it's either Beauty and the Beast or Little Mermaid. We're not doing both.
That is what I'm saying. Yes, we can do one Disney live action remake per like 3 years would be my preference.
That's all I can do.
I like Rob Marshall for the most part. I feel like great. Guys and Dolls, hard to mess up. Really good baseline content.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know that the wink and nod that's going to be needed to put on the sexism in it will be appropriately winked and nodded. But if he gets a good writer in there or like somebody to make sure that there's a camp feel.
What's Phoebe Waller-Bridge doing? Get her to rewrite it.
Get her on there. Yes.
Get her to be on it. I want her to be
Nathan Detroit.
Come on.
Perfect casting.
I think Rob Marshall's fine. I think you know who would do a great job with it is Kenny Ortega, and I am unironically saying that we love in this house.
This is a Kenny house.
This is a Kenny household, obviously.
We won't apologize for it.
I think it would be good. I think I would want them to. Well, I'm going to talk about it later, but I don't want them to feel like they have to update the music to sound current.
Yes, that would be the worst.
It should sound like the 40, 50 sound, that like jazzy, brassy, swingy sound that the musical has. I think it could be good. It really, you have to have chemistry with the two. If you don't have chemistry with the two leads, do not make the movie.
Yeah. Chemistry, keep the music. And I need them to kind of almost keep the original lines, and it's how you play it that makes it work, instead of what I don't want is like a Disney girl boss moment for
Hey girl boss.
You know what I mean? Like let it be what it is, and then you can have a little bit of dryness in the performance to let us know like obviously we don't do this anymore, but like don't rewrite it so that they're more empowered. Like don't give Sarah
a power ballad of like I am my own woman or whatever.
Speechless from Aladdin.
You don't need to add a scene so it passes the Bechdel test. We don't need that.
Yeah.
That's not the only way to do feminism. And then he says,
well, she has to try to like own her own dressmaking shop, and then the prince has to be Nathan Detroit has to be like, women can't own businesses here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what Jeff Bezos would do. And then finally, I would love y'all to cover the star-studded wannabe camp catastrophe known as The Prom on Netflix.
Yes, we've gotten this request multiple times.
Yeah.
Your podcast is called Showgays for a reason, damn it. And then he said... And then he says, James Corden is a hate crime, but I do want to point out that he replaced the O in Corden with a star as if it was a swear word. I'm sure you would get some fun content by digging into the niche theater jokes in the movie. Also, the savior of cinema, Nicole Kidman, love, and musical lover Keegan-Michael Key are great in small roles.
We love Keegan.
We love Keegan. I mean,
I
didn't
realize Keegan was in that, actually. This would make our like fourth Keegan-Michael Key movie
year
on this.
He has to have a Keegan-Michael Key performance.
I've said it before. I think that he is secretly behind the current revival of musical theater that we're seeing right now.
He's pulling the strings.
I think he's pulling the strings. Also, selfishly, I want to hear y'all rant about Ryan Murphy and his Glee legacy, which Molly once said was a stain on the American conscience. Damn, I didn't remember I said that.
That is going to be on your gravestone, Molly.
Oh,
it's going to say.
I want you to know that we saw this movie that we're talking about today, Wicked, at the Alamo Draft House. I don't know if you've ever been.
No.
But it's like you dine in, it's upscale, they kick people out if they talk. It's very serious. But the Alamo will do this thing where they'll do like a half hour, instead of like Maria Menounos going to the movies, whatever, that thing that other movie theaters do, they do like found footage compilation of like, if it's a property that's known, they'll do like, here's all the times Wizard of Oz is referenced in like pop culture throughout like history. And it'll be like commercials for dolls or like little weird like mini series clips or like a Japanese version, blah, blah, blah. So this is what we were getting. They did a section where they did different people singing Defying Gravity, because this is like a pop culture staple at this point.
Yeah.
And in it on the screen, they did not the first episode, or not the first time they did Defying Gravity, which was in the first season when Kurt and Rachel auditioned to sing Defying Gravity, and Kurt threw the solo at the end. Anyway, apparently they redid it in the 100th episode of the show. Oh. So they played that clip, or just a portion of it. And then on the screen, Alamo Drafthouse asserted that Glee was responsible for the resurgence of Defying Gravity in the culture. No, I was like, I've never even said anything that crazy. I said something less crazy, which is that Glee led us to gay marriage. Obergefell. Yeah. But I would never assert something as crazy as Glee brought back Defying Gravity from the dead.
Wow. It was never dead. God.
She was never dead.
She was never dead.
She was never dead. You. She hadn't melted. So that was fun. Yeah, Molly, thoughts on Glee? Any more recent notions you've had about Glee?
I haven't thought about Glee once since whenever the last time was we talked about it on this podcast.
Great. So speaking of Ryan Murphy, I will say that he was potentially going to be picked to direct this film. So there is a world.
They didn't pick him. So
yeah,
there's an alternate universe where he directed it, and it is.
It's fully Lea Michele for sure.
Oh wow! Oh wow! 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 Wow!
Oh wow! What a film that would have been.
He did the Menendez brothers thing, and that was great. And that is the kind of thing that I need him on.
Yes, you do.
I need him on that, and I need him not on this. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is too earnest.
Yeah.
Everything Ryan Murphy does has to be under. I guess Pose was different, but he kind of more like produced Pose as opposed to like he didn't really have like a specific hand on it necessarily. But okay, that's enough about Ryan Murphy. It's my turn.
Okay, Adam, you have the daunting task to summarize Wicked Part 1.
This is not going to be under a minute. I'm going to be very honest. This is not going to be under a minute.
Dude,
this is half of the musical, and this is not going to be under a minute.
Does everybody know that Wicked is a retelling prequel of Wizard of Oz? Let's make sure that the listeners are all aware of that before you get into the details of how the plot goes.
Well, I start with the word Munchkin Land, so I think that should be a clue.
I just want to make sure, because I will tell you that I brought my 9-year-old nephew to see Wicked, and we realized on the way there that he had never seen Wizard of Oz, so there was a need to quickly bring him up to speed. He had awareness from cultural osmosis, but he didn't know what happens in it, and so I needed to tell him on the way there. So I just want to make sure, firstly, if you're 9 years old, you're too young to be listening to this podcast, but secondly, just give everybody that context before you get into the details.
All right. Munchkin Land celebrates the declaration of the death of Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Glinda is asked about her former friendship with her. The film is told as a flashback, beginning in their time as forced roommates at Shiz University, where Elphaba's natural magical abilities give her a heads up, whatever, in what Glinda had always wanted to be a sorceress. However, leg up, thank you. That's an Ozian change. I'm doing fun Ozian phrases. However, Elphaba isn't nearly as well liked as Glinda, owing to her green skin, despite her also coming from a prominent family in Oz. Elphaba's sister is wheelchair-bound Nessa Rose, who struggles with feeling independent, and Elphaba blames herself for this as her mother took home remedies to ensure the second daughter wouldn't end up green, which disabled Nessa and led to her mother dying in childbirth. When Prince Fiyero enrolls and urges everyone to go out to the club, Glinda invites Elphaba with a black hat, ensuring that she will be mocked. Madame Morrible, head of the sorcery department, arrives and tells Glinda that she will be allowed to receive lessons as well at Elphaba's request. Glinda joins Elphaba in a dance, upping her social credit. They become friends, but things for talking animals continue to deteriorate in Oz. Elphaba's favorite goat professor is placed under arrest, and she and Fiyero narrowly save a caged lion from a fate of not learning how to talk, which ends with Elphaba developing feelings for Glinda's now boyfriend. She's suddenly invited to meet the wizard in the Emerald City, and Glinda joins her, but while Elphaba initially thinks that the wizard can help solve their problems, she eventually comes to discover that he is the one enacting them. Her disgust with the wizard and his antics, which include tricking Elphaba into turning the monkey guards into winged creatures at their terror, lead her to denounce him and reject his offer of opportunity. He and Madame Morrible set all of Oz against Elphaba, declaring her the Wicked Witch of the West, as Glinda rejects Elphaba's request to join her due to her cowardice and adherence to the status quo. Elphaba ends the film alone, publicly standing in opposition to the wizard as all of Oz demands her murder.
I will say, I believe the preferred term is
minutes.
I believe the preferred term is wheelchair user, but I appreciate that you got a lot of information into that. Well, it was a longer than a minute summary. I don't know how you could possibly get people the relevant information any shorter than that.
RJ and I, when we talk about BLs on our channel, we discuss them as we put them on a matrix. Okay. And on one axis is like, is it made for gay people or is it made for straight people? Yeah. But then the other axis is it plot driven or is it character driven? And a lot of the times in BL, just like in romance, it's always character driven. Yeah. Not necessarily plot. This is a plot show. Like, yes, there are character beats and the characters do go on journeys. And I would say the second act is more of a character journey. Yeah. But the first act is so plot heavy that I was there's so much table setting that I was like, I can't skip any of this. Earlier, I didn't even have Nessa Rose in there, but then I was like, technically all of this starts because she dies. So
right. Anyway. Well, yeah, I mean, I think firstly it's based on a book and the purpose of that book was telling all this backstory. And secondly, I realized as we watched it, I feel like we recently critiqued prequels that are very like, and then it sets up this, and then it sets up this, and then it sets up this. And that is very much Wicked. Although I feel like Wicked kind of started that trend. So I'm less annoyed by it in Wicked because I feel like this is kind of the thing that made everybody want to do that kind of prequel. But it is like every little detail, other than the one thing I did not love was the like picking the color of the road. I was like, you don't have to explain why the road is yellow, but like a lot of these little details are going to play into like what we know as the Wizard of Oz. And it does wrap up in a satisfying way in the second part that we will wait a year to see. So it is important to know.
And maybe we won't cover it on this podcast.
Who knows?
Great. Okay. I'll go first.
What is your relationship, Adam?
Wicked and I go back. Oh boy, do we go back. So this musical, I had started listening to it probably in 2004 would be my guess. 2003, 2004, when the original Broadway cast album came out. And I had like learned it. Then I read the book at the tender age of 12, which I don't think a 12-year-old can't read it, but I definitely think I'm not even going to talk about the appropriateness for children, which whatever, but there's definitely like, I didn't understand politically at all what this is talking about. There's no way, like, I want to reread it now with everything, like it being back in the culture in such a prominent way. Like I want to reread it because it is such a political book. Yeah. And boy, does it feel timely. That I am like, I'm interested to see like what his ruminations on, fascism is.
Notes on fascism.
Songtag did notes on camp. McGuire did notes on fascism. So I read the book, and then RJ, this was the time when my mom was like the senior warden at our church, and we had talked about how she like was very busy.
Okay.
My mom had to like. My mom was that lead like person at our church, like congregant person who like is head of the chapter or whatever. And then we at the same time found out that our priests had been like extorting money from the church, like had been embezzling funds from the church. So my mom was the one who was like going through like boxes of receipts and records and and doing all this like to prove the case to blah, blah, blah. So it was very hard. It was a very hard time. So the church, the congregation ended up actually buying Mom and I tickets to go see Wicked because it had just opened in Chicago. The Chicago run that ran for 4 years at the Oriental, what it was then called the Oriental Theater. Wow. So we went and saw it. So that was my first time. I've never seen it in New York. I've never seen it at the Gershwin. So I saw it in probably, it had to be like 2005 is when I saw it, is my guess. And it was great or whatever. And then my brother-in-law had bought like on eBay, I think that someone was selling like a bunch of like burned DVDs of like illegal like bootleg copies of the show. So I had like 3 or 4 different casts doing Wicked, which was so crazy. I didn't really watch them because they were all like on 2004 camcorders. So like the quality was like a home video garbage basically. Yeah. But like I definitely had, one of the ones I had was Kristen Chenoweth's last performance.
Oh, wow.
And if you've seen the show, she has the bit where she turns the frock into a beautiful ball gown or whatever. And Kristen just like did an improv routine for like 5 minutes. Like she just like extended it out for so long and the audience like lost their minds. I do remember that. I didn't really, I've seen it like a couple more times since then. I think I've seen it like in total 4 times.
Wow.
But it's not I mean, it was like kind of very special place in my heart, especially like that 8th grade era when you're kind of discovering musical theater and like more of like, they're not just songs, but it's more like you have graduated from Disney musicals to like things with themes. Yeah. So you feel like a little more adult. So it was like that, and it was like Phantom and Rent and kind of all like the standards of that time. And then, then I didn't really ever think about it until like they were making the movie again. And I was like, I remember hearing stuff about the movie being made, and there had been talks about this movie being made for like a decade now at this point. So then when they finally cast Cynthia and Ariana, I was like, maybe we'll see, And then I watched the movie, and the movie started, the overture starts, and I like started crying. Wow. And I was like, I guess I was surprised because it's not my favorite show, but I was like, oh, I think it's just like, it's such a nostalgic. I remember listening to the show so much as a kid. Like I wore my CD out. And so I was like, oh, and I think like it's a great, I think it's a very good movie. I did enjoy the movie a lot. And I think the show is good. I'm not one of these like Wicked is bad. I think that's silly. But I was like way more moved about finally like seeing it on the big screen than I thought I was going to be. But I really was like, every song I was like, oh my God, it's happened. Like every song I couldn't believe it was like finally coming in front of my eyes. So that's my relationship.
I want to say I feel that Wicked is objectively good, and its problem is only that it's become too normie. I think it is in the Andrew Lloyd Webber category of it's like, it's not, if you're a musical theater person, it's not cool for Wicked to be your favorite because it's too popular. Right. But there's nothing actually wrong with the show. I think the reputation of it is based only on, well, everybody knows Wicked, so it's like too normal to pick that as your favorite.
It feels like our American mega musical. Like it feels like our version of what the Claude Michel Schomburg, like, what is the producer's name?
No, you got it right.
Cameron Michael? What?
Cameron Michaels. The big Cameron Michaels production.
Cameron McIntosh. Cameron Michaels is a drag queen. Famous musical theater
Broadway producer.
Broadway producer, bodybuilder, and drag queen.
Bodybuilder, drag queen, Cameron Michaels, absolutely. Yeah, it feels like it was like our big runaway mega musical.
That wasn't Disney.
That wasn't Beauty and the Beast or Lion King. Yeah.
Yep. I mostly because we're not really going to talk about the stage musical. I just want to go back to Molly's point that the show is good. I do think Wicked is good, but I do think it's like I think the second act is weak. Mm-hmm. I think it like wraps up things really easy, like quickly in the second act, and like it's very short. Act 1 is just so much stronger than Act 2 in the show. But those are like, I think the general complaints most people have about, like, if you're actually like objectively saying like what you think is wrong with necessarily the show and the pacing and everything.
I feel like almost every musical people think that the first act is better than the second act. So although I'm a second act of Into the Woods apologist, I think it's really good. So.
Absolutely.
Well, I think second acts I think endings are always harder to write than like openings. Like you have all the world at your fingertips at the beginning, and then you have to like thread the needle perfectly. Yeah.
Also, like potentially the greatest musical theater song of all time ends the first act of Wicked. So sorry to be
by a high margin.
Giving my opinions a little bit early, but yeah,
totally.
Okay, Molly.
So I first found out about Wicked, I think around the same time as you did, Adam. I was in 6th or 7th grade because I remember that one of my friends from middle school, she went to, I don't know if she went to Chicago or New York, but she went somewhere with her family and saw it and came back with a CD and was like, let me tell you about this. I think she got a sweatshirt that said like Shiz University or something like that. And she played the songs for us and whatever. So I got into the music and everything first. And then she was so cool because she saw it. And then in high school, my mom took me and a friend to go see it. And I think I referenced this before. It was the only musical that I have ever gone to with my mother where she fell asleep in the theater while it was happening. I think it might have been
which part? This is what I need to know.
Yeah, I think
if it's a sentimental man, she was right. She was right for falling asleep then.
I think it might have been I'm Not That Girl.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I think it's much better in the film, but yeah.
All of a sudden the tempo changes, you know, and it lulls you.
It lulls you. So I would say like Wicked has remained for me since then solidly. It's like in the top 10, but at the bottom of the top 10 for me. Yeah. It's not a particular favorite, but it's like objectively good. And I would recommend it to most people. It is absolutely a musical that if somebody was like, here's the 10 things that there are in New York, what should I see? I would put it on the list of, do that one. Yeah. So I don't have like really strong feelings about it, but I like it. I'm for it. I was excited they were making a movie for it. I did, as I said, I was going to bring Andrew. He was down to see it, but he does have restless leg syndrome. And so he was like, that's a long time for me to be sitting down. Yeah. So then I took another person who was not able to sit still for that long, which was my 9-year-old nephew. So we would not have done well in the draft house because it was too long for him. But he managed to get through it. And he did start asking me how much longer it was going to be during I'm Not That Girl. So there's something about my family and that song not happening. Oh, but funny enough, I like that song a lot because I did a musical theater camp one time, also around middle school, where it was like a pastiche. So we like worked with the teaching artist to like make a story, and then we took songs from lots of different musicals and put it in there. And so I remember it was some scene where we were like waitresses that like were in love with a guy who was a customer, and we sang that song as part of that little pastiche. So I knew that I know that song from that. I like performed it one time, so I like that song. He asked me during that song how much longer it was, and it was I think another hour left of the film. And I'm like, ooh, all right, well.
I saw it twice, and when I was like, the minute that song ended, I was like, I just need to know, because there's really only 2 really big songs left. I need to know how much more there is, and it's 50 minutes when I'm Not That Girl. Yeah. To her battle cry is 50 minutes.
To be fair, he did say that when they went to Oz, then it kind of picked up for him, and it makes sense. Obviously, you're a 9-year-old boy, like the pining love song is going to be the least interesting part of the whole thing to you. Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I get why Fiero's in there, but part of me feels like we should just cut that whole plot line, to be honest. And I cannot believe I went into this being like, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It must be that they added a bunch of stuff. Nope. It's not 2 hours and 40 minutes on stage, though, is it?
On stage.
No, it's like 2. I don't know how long. Maybe 2.5 with a 15 intermission.
The total thing is 2.5 with 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's longer than the stage show.
We're going to get into what we think happened, how it's so much longer. But anyway, it was really fun. As I said, he did not know the plot of Wizard of Oz, so I had to explain it to him quickly in the car because I remembered that it was going to start with the Wicked Witch of the West's death. And I was like, oh, you're going to need to understand what's going on there. But I explained to him about Dorothy melting her. And then we get out of the movie and he's like, well, I'm really upset that Dorothy's going to melt her. And then I had to think about, I was like, well, this wasn't written assuming that you wouldn't have the second act when you first see it. So I was like, do I spoil for him what happens in Act 2? Because it's not really against the artist's intent if I do that, but also I don't want to ruin his experience.
We have to spoiler alert this episode because I was gonna try not to talk about the second act of the show because that's not what's happening in this film, obviously. But there might be times where we talk about it. So this is your spoiler alert. If you don't know what happens in Wicked, you've never seen it, you've never listened to it, that's fine. And you want to be fully green when you go see part 2 next year, I would say just come back and listen to this next year.
Yeah. So what I settled on was I just said, I don't want to say too much, but maybe you find out there's more to the story. And then he was kind of happy with that. So I didn't explain it to him, but I did feel like that is it's a little bit of a weird, especially the length of time between the 2 parts coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. It does something kind of weird to the story of it. But he was really excited about it and came home and was telling his family all about what happens in it and stuff. So that was really sweet. I did also try to explain to him the cameo of Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth in the car at home. And he was so confused. He was like, so they were in The Wizard of Oz. And I was like, no, they were not in The Wizard of Oz. They did it. It was a play. And then they were in the play and they were playing Elphaba and Glinda. And he was like, so they were those roles. They were the actors in the play. And I was like, yes. And he was like they were actors in this movie. And it was because they were then acting as actors in the movie. It was too many layers. He could not understand who these women were.
Yeah.
So it was a good time. I think I pushed him a little too far on the timing, but otherwise it was fun to be able to take a kid to go see it.
RJ?
As we know from this show, I came into musical theater very late in life in high school.
That's a late bloomer.
Very late bloomer.
So late. In 8th grade, that was when I like got into Rent, and one of the first musicals that I was like picking songs. Like I was just picking songs from different musicals to like get a taste of everything. I did pick out Wicked, Defying Gravity. Well, you felt something in your like Filipino soul.
Yeah, I was
that
like,
drew you to that huge number.
Huge belts.
Yeah.
It was Defying Gravity, What Is This Feeling, and Popular were obviously like the 3 very popular songs of Act 1. So those were the ones that I like picked out. And then when I got more into musical theater in high school, that's when I listened to the full soundtrack, but would always still just gravitate those 3 songs. And then I remember, I think it's still on Facebook in like a private video, but I'm pretty sure my friends and I did What Is This Feeling? We were not out, by the way. I just want to preface that. Okay.
Well, in your head, you weren't out, but I'm sure
in my head, yes.
The performance, it was clear. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Was it in full drag or it was just you?
No, we were backstage for our Christmas choir, our men's choir Christmas concert. And we snuck away to the speech and debate room, because that's where we hung out before it was time to go, and just lip sync to different musicals. So we did that. We did It's All Over from Dreamgirls, and it's on my Facebook. So if anyone wants to hack it, it's right there.
Listeners, here's your challenge. Can you find this video?
And then it wasn't until I was in Orlando when the tour came, though, I finally saw the show. So I had never seen the show fully. I want to say it was like 17? 16, 17, maybe 18, actually. Somewhere there. And that was my first time ever watching the show. And I remember being like, oh, it's like a full production. Like, it's like full, like, I don't know. I didn't know what I was expecting. I have no idea what I was expecting, because I've seen clips.
I don't know what other music would, like, this music calls for nothing less than a full production. I feel. Yeah.
I just didn't expect it.
It was really stripped down, minimal. Yeah.
I didn't expect so much. I think like special effects. I didn't expect a lot of like stage magic, which I was like, they're witches. I should have. Because I had only seen like the bootleg clips of like, What Is This Feeling? Obviously, Popular. Even like Defying Gravity, I knew that she flies. But I didn't know like to what extent or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so it finally clicked, and I was like, oh, and then I had no idea what happened in Act 2. Like literally, I really never really knew.
Still doesn't know. He just asked me like last week, he was like, wait, so does Dillamond become the Cowardly Lion? And I was like,
you're joking.
What? That's not part of the lore that is set up that animals turn into other animals. No, it's very clear.
Wow.
Anyway.
All right.
I was like, yeah, does Bach turn into the flying monkeys? And I was like, no, the flying monkeys became the flying monkeys. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
But I mean, like, it's in a place where I'm like, because I know how much Adam is such a nerd for it, like such a loser nerd for Wicked.
Oh my God, you're so
I was joking. That it's fun to kind of be like, what happens? Blah, 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 blah.
I owned the Grimmery. They had like a production book called The Grimmery, and I owned it as like a kid. Yeah,
I think that probably everyone knew going into this that Adam was going to be the most into this musical experience. Yeah,
that's a fair assumption.
Yeah,
and I remember the musical theater compilations that like went viral on like Facebook and YouTube. Like around that same time too. I remember the main one for Wicked was it's in Act 2, but it's the like, what is this chanting? I don't even know what I'm reading. Of the different alphabets doing that.
Oh, that's funny. So. I don't think I caught
No Good Deed.
From No Good Deed.
Yeah.
Oh, I realized I didn't say, I think mine was also a national tour. I'm pretty sure I saw it in Minneapolis. So it must have been a national tour. So I guess none of us have seen it on Broadway proper.
On Broadway.
Yeah. And it isn't like because I was very into this recent trip we had when we went to New York. I was very into like comparing the different houses, because I finally we
saw enough shows in one trip that we got to see the differences in the Broadway houses.
Yeah. So it's at the Gershwin Theater, which is like, I think the biggest or second biggest house. It has like 1,900 seats, which is big for Broadway.
Is where Gypsy, is that the biggest?
No, but it's up there. that has like 1,700.
Where the Phantom used to play.
Where Phantom, yeah, the Majestic. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because I think that's helped it have a run for as long as it has, because it's in such a lot of tickets they can sell.
It's still currently running, and it has been
21 years.
Okay, yeah.
21 years. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so let's talk about... if you want to listen to us discuss the history of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, please visit our The Wiz episode, where I talk about it there.
A never-ending source of musical theater content.
I know.
If you would like to listen to me talk about the history of The Wizard of Oz from 1939, please visit our Wizard of Oz episode. Or you can wait until later this season where we redo that episode. So I'm going to start talking about the history of this with the book, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, released in 1995 by Gregory Maguire. So Gregory Maguire was a children's book author prior to this book. And I was watching this thing that was talking about how he, during like Desert Storm and
not something I was expecting to come up with this.
Nope. Desert Storm and also do you know the Bolger murder in the UK? The kid who got like 9-year-old or maybe he was like 5. He got like stabbed by like a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old in the 90s. Do you know about this?
No.
It's horrifying. It's horrifying.
Okay.
It's literally one of like the grisliest murders in recent like UK history, and people still like do not like talking about it over there.
I might have heard something about it. Okay.
So these things going on, the big one was the murder, but it led him to the question of, he has a quote that says, "Everyone was asking, how could these boys be so villainous? Were they born evil, or were there circumstances that pushed them towards behaving like that? It propelled me back to the question of evil that bedevils anybody raised Catholic."
Yay! We're back, Molly. We're back.
We found a way to connect every musical to Catholicism. I did just look it up. It was 2 10-year-old boys killed a 2-year-old boy. So
it's even worse.
Even worse.
So then I have another quote from him. It's, "If everyone was always calling you a bad name, how much of that would you internalize? How much of that would you say, all right, go ahead. I'll be everything that you call me because I have no capacity to change your minds anyway. So why bother? By whose standards should I live?" So with this framework of being curious about the way evil exists, and if people are wicked or people are evil, or if they develop evil tendencies. Right. This is where he turned to the Wicked Witch of the West, because obviously her titular name is Wicked Witch of the West. But he says that the rest of the characters in the Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum are not traditional fairy tale tropes. Like they're kind of unique American. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is really seen as like the true American fairy tale that's kind of its own thing. It doesn't really come from any kind of European history, except for the witch. The witch is angry and scary and has a big nose, and she lives in a castle, and it's like kind of very traditional in that way.
Yeah.
So he used that imagery plus the 1939 film in which she's green, because in the original book, The Wicked Witch of the West is not green. So he took those two, mashed them together to create Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. Now,
oh my God, Molly, I'm so happy you're not on social media, because all of social media is just like, here are some things you didn't know about the Wicked Witch of the West. And it's just all of these, like, she was not originally green, blah, 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 blah.
It's me doing this.
It's Adam literally doing it, but like everyone's repeating the same facts.
Social media sucks. That's why I'm off of it. Everyone stop doing this to your brains.
Just listen to the podcast.
Just listen to our podcast and nothing else.
So he said he wanted to use the Charles Dickens style of expansion in order to take the stock villain from children's literature and like really delve into the full story.
Dickens stories are expansions of existing.
Meaning like there's like it's about like there's like a bunch of themes that he's playing with in terms of like societal blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
An examination. So Dickensian. And also really long. It's a 600-page book. It's very long.
That he certainly took from Dickens, yeah.
And it takes place over the course of like 5 timelines in Elphaba's life. Every time it jumps forward 7 years. So it's her like born as a kid. And then you go to Shiz, and then she has like an affair with Fiyero later, and then she like joins a convent, which I think is very interesting. And then she ends up dying at the end.
Sister Elphaba.
So the only real things that are taken and used for the show are that her name is Elphaba. Her and Galinda were roommates.
Oh, interesting.
Fiyero is a character, but he is not. He is not the same. He is a prince, but he is like a winky prince. So he's like dark skinned and he has like tattoos on his body. And so like he's also ostracized. Like it's not his Oz, Maguire's Oz is not everyone's all humans are harmoniously living together and they just hate Elphaba. There are still like class differences. Like there's still like they look down on each other in different
and
respects.
And it sounds like race, probably like racial differences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's not utopian.
Right. Okay. A lot of it is sanitized for the musical to obviously be able to condense it into a 2.5 hour product. There's no way to take a 600-page book and really do that effectively.
Right.
And so they also, because Galinda really only is in like the second part of the story. And then she comes back when Dorothy finally shows up and it's like they've seen each other now for the first time in years. But that's kind of it. They do not have this long, like it's not about their friendship and their wonderful like girls to each other and they're just like gal pals palling around. Like that is not the story of Wicked. And so when they were making the musical, they like focused in on those themes instead of all the other complicated, animal orgies that happen in the book.
Is the animals losing the ability to speak a part of the book?
They are being like imprisoned and killed. So Dillamond in the book is murdered.
Ooh.
Madame Morrible is killed.
Oh.
Elphaba does die from the water because she's allergic to water.
Gotcha.
It's very serious. It's incredibly serious in the book.
And it sounds like it was written for adults. You were saying you read it at 12 and it was not quite for a 12-year-old. Okay, yeah.
No. So this will move. Now we'll talk about Wicked, The Untold Story of the Witches of Oz, which is the full title of Wicked the Musical. Music and lyrics by Stephen Schwartz, book by Winnie Holtzman. It premiered in 2003 on Broadway after a tryout in San Francisco. Its first U.S. tour was in 2005. It added a second U.S. tour in 2009, which is still running today. Wow. Debuted on the West End in 2006, and then it's had 3 UK Ireland tours and then multiple international performances. I know there's been Brazil, there's been Korea, there's been Germany, there's been name a country, it's been there.
Yeah.
It did not win the Tony for Best Musical. This is like the big upset. Avenue Q beat Wicked this year. There's a lot of, you can look on YouTube and find a bunch of like people
video essays
about this topic. It's very political as to why Avenue Q was chosen.
Yeah.
And this Avenue Q beating Wicked actually led to the Tony Committee changing the way that shows can use funds in order to like campaign. So there were changes that came from this because I think people were so shocked at this huge upset. But Stephen Schwartz, I read this book and thought it was like he could see a dramatic vision of it for the stage. And he reached out to Mark Platt, who was with Universal Pictures at the time, Ben's dad, who had the right, and Universal had the rights to the book. And so he pitched him a musical version instead of the film version, which was going to be produced by Demi Moore. That was the original idea, which is crazy.
Star of the Substance, Demi Moore.
Golden Globe nominee Demi Moore. Demi. So they moved to a musical version, which is what we have today. After the tryout in San Francisco, they went through 3 months of rewrites in order to finalize the book and everything and get it to where it is now. And both Winnie and Stephen have said that was invaluable. They had to do that in order to fix all the problems that they had realized during the tryout, which is why you do tryouts. Yeah. And then you don't go immediately from tryout to Broadway in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which shows do more frequently nowadays.
Yeah. Unless you're a hit.
The biggest problem that critics had in San Francisco was they were like, oh, it's just Kristen Chenoweth being incredible, because he wrote it for Kristen Chenoweth. He wrote that entire role for her. And then Adina came in late. Stephanie J. Block was the original reader, and she did the San Francisco tryout. I think she did the San Francisco tryout. Maybe she didn't actually. But then Adina Menzel came in, and so they had to like bump up like how important, like to make it clear that it's like it is Elphaba's story at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Even though Kristen's great in this.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I want to talk about is that Stephen Schwartz does not usually use this. This is more of an Andrew Lloyd Webber thing that we've talked about before. But in Wicked, he uses musical leitmotifs. Leitmotifs, thank you. And then the one I wanted to mention was the Unlimited theme. So when she goes, unlimited, my future is. So those are the same notes from Unlimited to My Future. That whole phrase is somewhere over the rainbow. It's the same notes with a different rhythm and obviously different chords underneath. The joke being that it's only 7 notes. Apparently, when it's 8 notes is when people come and say, "Oh, you've stolen." Like it's the 8th note in like in lawsuits is where people will be like, "Oh, this is where you've actually stolen our blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
So he was like, "Haha, it's just 7 of the 8 notes." La 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 la.
Also, would it not like fall under fair use as a parody of the? I mean, it's commentary on the Wizard of Oz, so I feel like he would have a good case. But anyway, avoid the legal system. That makes sense.
Yeah, Rita, let us know. Let us know about law.
Yeah, she's deep in the musical copyright system. Yeah, so yeah,
I figured. So now we'll talk about Wicked, the film, directed by, this is Wicked Part 1, by the way, John M. Chu, screenplay by Winnie Holtzman and Dana Fox, based on Wicked, produced by Mark Platt and David Stone, starring Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, Ariana Grande Butera, her full name, as Galinda or Glinda, depending on which part of the movie you're in. Jonathan Bailey plays Prince Fiero. Ethan Slater is Bach, the Munchkin. Bowen Yang plays Fanny. Marissa Bode is Nessa Rose. Peter Dinklage is Dr. Dilliman, Michelle Yeoh is Madame Morrible, and Jeff Goldblum is the Wizard. Cinematography is by Alice Brooks, edited by Myron Kirstein. The music, additional scoring is by John Powell and Stephen Schwartz. Production companies, Universal Pictures and Mark Platt Productions, distributed by Universal Pictures. It was released on November 22nd, 2024. Its running time is 160 long minutes, and its budget was $150 million, and so far it has made $465.2 million.
Wow.
A hit. Not surprised.
Not surprised at all.
A smash? It did smash, right? Smash records on that first weekend?
Smash records on the first weekend. I think it's like the biggest
grossing movie musical, right? Or
of all
like
time,
that?
I think.
It beat Chicago?
Yeah, not adjusted for inflation, obviously.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't really get a bunch of like production stuff because I don't actually find it that interesting. This has been.
Oh, you're right. Nothing interesting happened during the production of this. There were no scandals or pieces of news.
Oh, we want to talk about that? I mean, we can talk about it.
Of course I want to talk about it. Oh my God.
Okay, well, this movie has been supposed to come out for like fucking years now. It was originally announced in like 2016 that they were going to release it, and then it just kept getting delayed for a bunch of different reasons. Obviously, COVID was one of them. The other one was the actors' strike from 2020. Was that last year? Was that 2022 that delayed it as well? I think it was last year.
Well, it's about to be 2025, so.
Oh shit!
2022 might be right, but
2023. I don't know. Whatever the actor strike was, you all remember. We were all there, striking along with them, picketing.
That was last year.
That was last year, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing. There was a SAG-AFTRA one here in Chicago too.
I was listening to an episode of a podcast, and Cynthia Erivo was on, and she was saying that the last scene they had to shoot for this fucking movie was Defying Gravity, and they had to halt production before she could finish it. And so she was like, I had to sit. Because it was like a 5 or 6 month strike. And so she was like, I just had to sit with Elphaba in my body for like I mean, this is very actor speak, by the way. Normal people don't talk like this. But she was like, I just had to sit and live with Elphaba for like 5 extra months while I waited to like do the biggest number in the show, which is like genuinely crazy. So this movie, Cats took the original release spot. It was supposed to be released in 2019. So... And Cats gave us COVID. The other things I had are just like things that happen in the movie. I just have like trivia things. Oh, we can talk about casting. Glinda, it could have been Amanda Seyfried or Renee Rapp. Fiero could have been Nick Jonas or Joe Jonas, which I think is funny that both of them auditioned for this. Yeah. And then Elphaba could have been Lady Gaga, Jessie J, or Leah Michele.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm so glad it's Cynthia Erivo.
So glad. Am I allowed to talk about it now?
You can talk about it now.
Okay. So, moms, if you don't know, in the course of making this film, Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater, who plays Bach,
the only straight man on the set,
had an affair. They were both married to other people at the time. Ariana Grande had married. She'd been married for like a few years to a guy she met during COVID, and he had been married. He was somewhat recently married, but to his like high school sweetheart who had been with for like 10 years, and they had a baby together.
They had just had a baby. So it was crazy. Also, Ariana Grande's ex-husband was like a very conventionally attractive real estate agent, and Ethan Slater played SpongeBob on Broadway, and there were a lot of not very flattering pictures of him out there on the internet being very nerdy and whatever, and people could not get over the juxtaposition between these two men and the one that she chose to have an affair with. Look, I think that that's a little bit overstated. Like, I don't think he's a bad looking person, but like... No, I don't think so either. But this hair in this movie is not helping him. No, not doing him any favors. He plays these very like dorky characters. And... not bad looking versus Ariana Grande is still, there's a big step in between those two often. There's a wide dearth.
Wide dearth. So it was bananas when this happened. It was such big news. And then she put out an album that is the only pop album that I have listened to multiple times all the way through.
It's so good.
It's not Sweetener. So Sweetener was the Pete Davidson.
Sweetener, sorry.
This is Eternal Sunshine.
Eternal Sunshine,
Yes, and...
I usually, when like a pop diva puts out an album, I listen to like the top tracks or whatever. I have listened to this whole thing multiple times through, and it is an album about how she was not happy with her ex, and she is not sorry for having this affair. And honestly, it slaps. And so,
it's so good.
I recommend
this should have been the clue that Donald Trump was going to be reelected.
We should have known. We're in our selfish era as a country. We're not going to apologize for our wrongs anymore. And I did forget when all this happened. When it was happening, I was like, well, at least it won't be weird in the movie, because like I remembered that Bach got with Nessa Rose, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that like they have different
they don't really
whatever. I forgot that the reason that Bach gets with Nessa Rose is because he's in love with Glinda and is like, I'll do anything you say. And then she tells him to go ask out Nessa Rose as a way to like get him away. That scene was so uncomfortable for me personally.
That was the longest scene in the entire movie. That probably added the extra 2 hours of the movie.
Yeah. That was it. We found the runtime. That scene.
It was the amount of time it took them to film that scene. So it was bananas that when this happened, and it was honestly probably good PR for the film.
I think it came out in enough time, long ago enough that the cycle of talking about it had ended. If it had come out like a month before this movie came out, we would still be in the middle of discussing like, is Ariana Grande a bad person? Which was like genuinely the conversation. But I'm glad it did not. It would have been exhausting if it was. Listen, this fucking press tour was already exhausting with the two of them clutching each other and crying every 5 minutes. And I'm a musical theater person, and I thought it was exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that it wasn't like we're canceling Ariana Grande, so now we can't go see this movie. I mean, I'm against infidelity, but I also don't think we need to like never engage in art made by somebody who's cheated on their spouse. And I think it was like, I think it kind of got people hyped for the fact that there would be a Wicked movie. And then there was like a pause where we didn't think about it. And then the Wicked movie came out. So I do think like probably it was useful. If you were a producer of this film, you probably weren't that mad about that whole affair. That's all I'm saying.
Totally.
Other than the complaints that I heard that people working on the film were like, this was really annoying to deal with. So in that way, actually probably wouldn't like it.
No, this is where I like to bring up that, Cynthia Erivo also broke up a marriage.
I did not know.
She broke up Lena Waite's marriage, and her and Lena Waithe are still together.
I didn't know that Lena Waithe had been married.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater are also still together. So
yes, they are. Yeah.
Going strong with their adulterous marriages.
I think things can be way more complicated than I'm sure we are given access to and are privy to that information.
Sure.
Generally.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun while it was all going on for sure.
Yeah.
The memes alone. The SpongeBob memes.
SpongeBob memes.
Yeah.
Now let's just quickly speaking about Ariana Grande. She was in Hairspray, the live musical on NBC as Penny Pingleton a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching it and being like, she's bad. This is bad. And when this casting was announced, I was like, boy, I hope she does well. And obviously she proved all of us wrong because she's really great in the film.
She's amazing in this.
There's a lot of discussion about awards conversation with her. I'm sure she will be at least nominated for. She's already nominated for the Globe, isn't she?
Both of them are.
And I'm sure she'll be nominated for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars. But I think looking back, because I've seen other people say like, oh, I was worried because of that Penny performance. And I wonder if at the time they were like, oh, just do Ariana Grande. Like just do you. Because that's what people are going to come see, especially with those like live NBC ones. It can be a little like, they're
you have
not
to play out a lot bigger.
It feels like a concert.
Yeah.
So she is Galinda in this film. She is not... Ariana's gone. She left the building. She is channeling Kristen Chenoweth so hard. There are times in this movie where I was like, you have her she's doing a vocal impression of Kristen Chenoweth in some lines. It's so interesting. I don't mean that disparagingly either.
Yeah, I don't feel like she's doing such a Kristen Chenoweth that it feels like it's just a mimicry though. Like I do think she's bringing her own thing to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But you can tell as opposed to Cynthia. But I think Glinda is this way too in the show. Glinda has way more things that are like Glinda-isms than Elphaba has Elphaba-isms.
Yes.
So this is Cynthia's Elphaba, which is totally different from Adina's Elphaba, which is different from Eden Espinosa's Elphaba. Okay, right? Everybody has their own Elphaba. Whereas Glinda has this mold that has to fit. And a lot of it is because she has the weight of all of the comic timing in the show on her back. Yeah. She is the funniest person in the show, which is not normally the case for like the blonde ingenue looking person is to be the funny one, but she is the funny one. So she has a lot of like timing stuff that she just has to carry around. But I think it is interesting that knowing that the show, what that role was written for Kristen, it makes more sense that I can still see the through line. Whereas like with Cynthia, I feel like Cynthia's Elphaba is fully brought to life by her being a queer Black woman. Like it comes through so hard in this film. Totally, it's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. But there have even been people talking about like a lot of the like Adina's probably was, she hasn't said this necessarily, but I wonder, like people have speculated that she brought a lot of like her Jewish like hair, like her Jewishness to it and being like feeling othered because of that. And like there have been a lot of Jewish Elphabas actually historically. Whereas I think there's only ever been one Black Elphaba, and she was in the West End. She was in the West End in 2016. I think she's back now currently, actually. Yeah.
I mean, it is the scene where she goes to Shiz, and then it's the shot from behind her as she's walking in and students are reacting, and you can see her hair in braids. There's a very like racialized tone to it. There are also like they did a mix of students in terms of race at the university. So it's not a one-to-one, like she's also the only Black person on screen, but you can tell that that's soaked into what's happening on screen. Yeah.
I don't really have anything else other than I think this absolute fascinating fact of Cynthia Erivo and Margaret Hamilton were the same age playing the Wicked Witch of the West.
Wow.
37. I want to repeat that. Margaret Hamilton was 37 years old in The Wizard of Oz.
Slay.
She looks like she's 85.
Well, they put makeup on her, Adam.
Even when she's fucking Elvira Gulch, she looks old as hell.
I think they did make up for that too. But yes, she did not exactly how you would expect a current 35.
She also did famously get burned on the set. We'll talk about that when we get to The Wizard of Oz. Well, should we talk about the movie?
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Enjoy the next 45 minutes of Adam talking about
my worry about this film going into it, or I should say leading up to it, because I think once it came out, a lot of people were like, oh, it's very good. It's justified why it's 2 hours or why it's so long, blah, blah, blah. When the news was announced that it was going to be two separate films, it felt immediately like a cash grab.
And you can listen to the Did You Read the podcast? Did you read the group chat podcast episode? Because Adam and Miranda talk about this. They're like, this was their genuine concern.
Yes.
Splitting into two parts.
So, I was nervous that it would just feel gimmicky. And I wasn't worried that they weren't going to put a budget into it. I knew that this was like a huge mega budget movie. Like I knew that the whole time. So I guess my big fear was like that it was going to just feel like a marketing thing. Like it was just going to feel like, well, The Hobbit is such a good book. We got to make three of them.
Oh yeah, gross.
And so I was worried about that. Do I think it needed to be 2 movies? Probably not. I don't think it needed to be anything, but also it didn't need to be like needing to do something is very silly in terms of like talking about art.
Sure.
So, I think with how they do it, I agree that it is a very long 2 hour and 40-minute film. Mm-hmm. I don't think it feels super long. I do think like the Sentimental Man, when we got to like that scene is when I was like, all right, okay. All right. Thank you.
I think
he did like a shadow puppet work. And I was like, all right.
I think if I hadn't sat next to a 9-year-old whose entertainment I felt responsible for and who I had also bought a slushie for, I might not have felt the length as much. I can watch a long movie. I don't mind that. I think it was that. And then it was also in Defying Gravity, which the performance next level would never have guessed that there was a break for Cynthia Erivo. Right. Mm-hmm. The fact that this woman adds sauce to that high note, it's
totally
incredible, right? Mm-hmm. But there are so many little scenes that are put in between the stanzas of that because I think because they have to kind of wrap it up a little bit more because they know there's going to be this break between movies. Right. Mm-hmm. I was getting a little like, hey, you've made me sit here for a long time and we all know what note we're waiting for. So can we get to the note? Can we just get to the note, please? Yeah. There were definitely moments where you felt it, but at the same time, I really don't know. I thought, is there going to be like a whole new subplot? Is there going to be like a whole, like, I don't know, like we get like the whole goat professor's backstory or something, you know, like, but is it just like all the establishing shots that they do quickly in theater and they could take their time in a movie? Like what do you think added all this time to it?
Yeah, that's what it felt like, that they were able to let the songs have longer
the songs breathe.
Yeah.
Like they're like Popular goes on for like that scene that Popular is goes on for like 12 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, even What Is This Feeling? The like full choreography, the full like sequences of them in different classes or them in university life hating each other.
Yeah.
You know,
totally. Yeah. Maybe it's just that.
I think because there is not, to Molly's point, there is not like,
they didn't add a whole nother.
They could have added more to like Bach or Nessa Rose to like flesh them out. Even Fierro to like fully flesh them out more as characters. And they did not do that. And so, I mean, I will say this. In some regards, I think it is aided because there is such a seriousness that you have to see from Elphaba's perspective that I think this works better for me. And in this film, watching it for like watching Elphaba's story, her getting bullied at the like dance at the Ozdas ballroom, that scene is like really well done. It's really effective. You really feel how awful it is. Whereas that scene in the stage show feels very gimmicky and like it's fine and it's charming and I know why it's there and what they're trying to do with it. But there's only so much without being able to see someone's close up facial expressions that like you can get away with.
Yeah.
And I think this movie very effectively uses like all the close-ups of especially Cynthia showing all of her
the emotions, all of the pressure that she feels. Yeah.
I did cry during that scene.
Oh, absolutely.
And
when Glinda wipes away her tear as she's crying and they're in the middle and you hear Glinda go, "It's all right." And you know that is just Ariana talking to Cynthia. I felt I was like,
she held space.
She's crazy. They were holding space.
And the choice of like that Elphaba doesn't cry until she's comforted is so brilliant, because that is when you're there by yourself, it's such a stone wall that you can't let any, and then it's when she's shown tenderness that she's able to cry. Ugh. I did also cry though. I don't know if because you talked about the previews of the album Draft House. The other time that I cried was during the Xfinity ad that came before the movie. I don't know if that played for you guys.
No.
Wait, describe it. Which one was it?
So there's an Xfinity ad and there's like a shortened version of it that plays on TV that they like partnered with Wicked, but it shows you like it's like pretend Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo as kids seeing. I don't know if they're seeing Wizard of Oz or Wicked, but then it's like them, like you see all these little shots of the kids getting bigger and like trying out for stuff and becoming actors and blah, blah, blah. And then like eventually finding out they were cats. I cried. I was so embarrassed, but I did cry during it. Are you going to go find it?
Wicked Xfinity commercial. Okay, hold on. Let me share screen. Okay. Let me hold space and share screen.
Yeah, you haven't been on social media. Do you know the holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity meme?
I saw something about holding space. I do know about Cynthia Erivo going off about people photoshopping the poster and then having to be like, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Yes. There was it Glad? It was Out Magazine.
Out Magazine.
Out Magazine was one of the press junkets, and the interviewer was like, what do you feel about, there are some people out there.
I've seen people on social media
talking about how they've really held space
with the lyrics of
Defying Gravity. And Cynthia we'll play that clip too after.
Okay. I'm not sure what you mean by
that. No one knows what it means. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to watch this Xfinity commercial. Okay.
Wow, that looks like Ariana.
And I think the world needs to see more of you. We would love for you to be our Elphaba. We want you to be our Glinda the Good.
Oh my God. Okay, hold on.
Okay, now we have to.
Now we're gonna watch Holding Space.
Okay, but I feel validated for crying now based on your reaction.
Oh my God!
When they turn back into little girls. Oh my God!
I've seen this week people are taking the lyrics of Defying Gravity and really holding space with that and feeling power in that. Would you touch on that moment in the film when Elphaba has been banished? And yet she comes into her full power at that moment of the worst time.
I didn't know that was happening.
I've seen it, yeah.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was happening.
I've seen it on a couple posts. I don't know how widespread, but I am in queer media, so that's my.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but it's happening.
Look, Cynthia Erivo could punch me in the face and I would still think she was the coolest person on the planet. So, I love it. She's Patti LuPone to me now.
So this became...
Yes, there is a Patti energy.
Yeah.
This became a full meme of people, not knowing what the fuck holding space meant, but also, how do you hold space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity?
So now everyone was like me when I'm holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity.
Yeah.
It's just
the thing is, I do know what holding space means.
Yeah.
And it means, giving time for somebody to share a difficult thing. And so it doesn't make sense in terms of...
It doesn't make sense for the lyrics.
But also...
the lyrics of the song.
Because I am in queer media.
But the way it wraps up with, but I'm in queer media, is of course you are. So then Variety had them on for an interview and they talked about this making of a meme. And it's in the interview. I won't play it, but in the interview, both Ariana's fully like, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't understand any of the words being said.
But Cynthia felt like she heard something different, and she had like an emotional reaction, and you could tell that the person interviewing was like, she kind of backtracks at the end where it's like, I only saw a couple of posts, so I don't know how widespread. But, and
that interviewer later was in another thing where they were like, I realized that what I said like affected them, and then I was like, oh, I wasn't trying to like start something. Anyway, it's so funny. None of them knew what the fuck was going on.
They, them pronouns?
No, I think she uses she, her.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure when you said them if you meant Cynthia specifically.
Oh, no, the two of them. The two of them. The two of them.
I understand what they were trying to say, right? Of like holding space, like the queer undertones, the holding space for what it like. I understand, and so I understand what Cynthia probably
there's
heard.
There's a queer message in Defying Gravity. I'm not undercutting the idea of like there is a queer double meaning to this song. It's just that holding space is the wrong phrase, and also it hits Cynthia so hard that like
so hard. Exactly. That you could tell Ariana was like holding her nail, her long nail.
She like holds her finger. It's so funny.
Ariana's touching her hand to be like, have you been on Twitter? It's not a good place. I just need you to know that before you react this way. Can we just, I know that I feel like I'm bouncing a little bit, but we did talk about Ariana a little bit in the Chenowithisms. I assumed and then confirmed that she did audition for Elphaba. And I want to applaud her for so hard leaning into this. There is no part of this film I was worried.
Ariana?
Yeah.
She was called in for both. She read for both.
But I think she wanted Elphaba. I've seen like clips of her doing The Wizard and I. Let's be real. Elphaba is the role. Like they are in some ways it is both of their musicals, but it is Elphaba's. And Ariana Grande is known for having this amazing vocal range. I don't think it's impossible that she could be Elphaba, right? That there is no moment in this film where you feel like she wishes she was playing the other role. We've all seen performances where you can tell that there's an actor in there that wishes they were the lead, and that you can feel the envy for. But she is so completely in the role of Glinda and having so much fun with it. And I think it speaks really well of her that I think Ariana Grande has she has all the ingredients that she could decide to be a too cool pop diva and like leave her musical theater background behind. And
she has so much love for it.
She has so much genuine love for it and has chosen to just enjoy herself in this film. And I think that it's really, it becomes to me very cool that she is just like letting herself be free and have fun and be a clear musical theater kid rather than trying to be like a cool detached pop star version of a musical theater performer.
Yeah, I've seen that longer clip of her in that Zoom call in the Xfinity commercial.
When she did
Xfinity commercial.
Yes, and she really does, like, she gets so emotional. She talks about it in the press junkets that, like, even in that, she's saying, like, I'm going to take care of her. I love Glinda so much. I'm going to take care of her. And I do feel like that she's aware, right, of, like, I know what people will think of me. I know what me being this name, even though it can really benefit the movie, there's probably a creative burden of, like, will people see past Ariana Grande, the pop star? And I think, I mean, as soon as she started doing the hair flips in the movie, I was like, she is so deep into this character. Yeah. She's like really like made it such a real person, even though it's such a character role.
It's a heightened person, but it is a person.
Yeah.
And it has to be on in a movie. She can't play to the back of the house like you would on stage in the same way.
Right.
And I will say, I think that the Glinda role can be underappreciated for the line that you have to walk, because in some ways she's almost the villain of the piece, right?
Oh my God, please don't start this argument. Molly, I will turn this podcast off if we start talking about this. I can't do this. The wizard is the villain of Wicked. I cannot have this argument again.
No,
Adam is that meme of the bro who's like, the Wicked Witch were sisters, bro. But it's this.
Adam, I need you to hold space for me right now, okay?
No, nobody's holding space for this argument that Glinda's the villain. If anyone is if we're going to name a woman as the villain, it's Madame Morrible, and then maybe Nessa Rose.
Calm
down.
God. Calm down. Here's what I want to say. Thank you. So to do Glinda well, you have to be comedically talented, like we said. Mm-hmm. And then all that I'm saying is that one of the themes of Wicked is being perceived as bad and being truly bad. Right. Yes. So for part of the first act, the irony that you think they're going with is Glinda's really the bad one and Elphaba's really the good one. But then they add this nuance of like, but Glinda's not bad. She's more just sort of complicit, right? Which I think is an even more subtle and complex thing to deal with as a performer. Totally. So I'm not saying she's the ultimate villain. That's a crazy argument if anybody says that. But I think
this is why you can't be on social media. That's the arguments on TikTok currently.
And I can see also, I guess, if you've only seen the first act, why you would feel more that way. But the point is, I think Glinda is a what's the word that I want?
Holding space.
Yeah. It's a role that really holds a lot of space. Surprisingly, or like, I want a word for like obscured or whatever. Like it's nuanced and subtly difficult to get it all of those beats right is all that I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I want to just give props to the role in general and to Ariana Grande's performance.
It's a very complex role.
Totally. It's a complex role.
That on its face is not complex at all.
On its face it's the dits.
That's why it's surprising how brilliant it is. And that's why her song, Thank Goodness, that starts act 2, I think is like fucking brilliant. When she has that moment where she drops the facade and you hear her like, be like, oh, this is what it's actually like. I think it's like very smart and well done. But again, we'll see that next year. Yeah. Should we, how are we going to do this? Should we go just through the movie?
I don't know. I really think we should just go performance by performance.
For so long already. We're not going through the whole movie.
The first shot of the movie is the hat. Okay.
Is there anything specific? I mean, I think we should. Is there anything specific about the adaptation that we want to talk about now before we go into performances?
Okay. Well, let me just really quickly, now that we mentioned the first shot of the movie, I do want to shout out. No, I do just want to shout out that while I was watching this with Simon, when the wizard at the end has the little thing of Oz, Simon tried to ask me a question about it, and I was like, let me just explain it to you after the movie because I don't let's not talk in the theater, right? Yeah. And when we got out of the movie theater, he was trying to ask me, why is there a tower of the castle that the witch is going to end up in? Mm-hmm. So he clocked with such detail. This kid has such an amazing memory. He saw that little moment of we see the witch's tower. And then when you just it's kind of going along as we see her tower and then we see Dorothy and whatever. He remembered what that castle looked like and noticed that it's on the Wizard of Oz's little mini thing and was asking me how that was already on his model when that part hadn't happened yet chronologically in the movie. And I was like, girl, I don't remember what the castle looked like the first 2 seconds of the film.
Yeah. What tower does she take?
It's called Cinemusical, and it's where she takes over when she leaves the Emerald City. It's where she lives. But it's already there. It already exists.
Well,
and this is also Winky Country, which is very important to know.
Oh, okay.
It's in Winky Country, which is where Fiero's from.
Prince Fiero's from. Gotcha. So I just wanted to shout out that I couldn't believe that he managed to clock that because I didn't notice either what it looked like in the first few seconds of the film, nor did I look that holistically
at the model.
The model.
Right.
But it does make sense. I was like, I'm sure it was something that already existed that she's going to take over. Yeah. Okay, I have a question about Fiero being a prince, but maybe we need to go talk about music first.
So I wanted to say, I do think if you haven't seen this movie, you should go see this movie. Oh yeah. If you've seen this movie once, I've seen it now twice, and I do think it favors repeated viewings because there's more little things that you catch that I think are really fun. There are more references to the Wizard of Oz that I caught on my second time watching it that I didn't catch the first time. There's a part during Popular when Glinda pulls out a pair of red shoes and she clicks the heel 3 times on beat that I didn't notice before. Mm-hmm. When you leave what Molly was just talking about, the castle at the beginning, you fly out of Cinemusical.
And you see someone. And
then we go into this is during the overture music, which this is the best way to do an overture, by the way, is to do an entire map setting section of your film.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't mad about the overture this time because of that.
And it's a very short overture. Wicked Famous is a very short
Yeah.
overture. There's this part where you like get this shot of like waterfalls and then the like glissando of the harp or whatever. And then like there's a rainbow that appears and then you fly over the rainbow and then you see Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and the Lion. And I was like, oh, that's great. There's like the shot where the lion cub is in the basket of the bicycle, which is a reference. Like it's all very well done. And they're tiny little things that don't like beat you over the head with it, which can be very frustrating if it feels like I'm being pandered to.
And once again, you're not on TikTok, so everyone on TikTok are calling all of these Easter eggs.
Oh yeah, everything's an Easter egg.
The cameo is an Easter egg.
Everything's an Easter egg. Easter egg doesn't mean anything anymore.
I think
really held
we
space
could,
for an Easter egg.
I think we could say like the lion cub in the basket. Like that's to me is like an Easter egg. Like it's a little thing, right? Even maybe the shoes. The shoes are a little obvious. Even Simon, who again had never seen The Wizard of Oz, but I had explained to him about the ruby slippers, was like, she pulled those out, and then he turned to me in the theater and goes, "Aren't those supposed to go to her sister?" And I was like, "You're way too ahead.
You're way too slow down.
Slow down, sir." But yeah, like people are basically just going to be like, an Easter egg is that the Wicked Witch of the West is a character in The Wizard of Oz. Like, okay, girl, yeah, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this.
Anyway, it's good. It's fun to watch it again.
And back on the first scene of the movie, since we are going to start from scene by scene now, I think it's important to talk about No One Mourns the Wicked specifically, and then we can talk about the rest of it since it's setting up the rest of the thing. So on stage, this starts off with a bang, with a big, I feel like Adam's doing Our Town. So over here at the Munchkin Land,
Grover's Corners. So it starts off, it's very loud, it's very brash. And I think in the show, it is way less obvious than they made it in the film that Glinda is very conflicted. Right. And I think the way that they change this in the movie is really effective. They roll out
a
huge effigy.
Oh, yes.
An effigy of Elphaba. And they burn it. She burns it.
And it's giant.
And she looks, I just want to really shout out, like the beginning of this movie is, I mean, like, this is where everybody goes into this movie and you know Ariana Grande's in this film and everybody already has a preconceived notion of what Ariana Grande is, who she is as a performer, blah, blah, blah. The general populace pretty much only knows her as a pop star. So you're going to go in and be like, I don't know if she can do it. And it's a lot. It's like she has that high soprano line in this moment, but also like, this is where she starts. You already have to be like, is she funny and can she sell the kind of confliction that confliction?
Well, I think conflicted nature. I think that this is where it being a film is really important because on stage she's performing for the Munchkins. She's performing for the rest of us too. It's a very public moment, but in a film you have to get it right up on her face, and so you can't not show any of that conflict in this scene, or else it won't make sense when you know the whole story.
Yeah. I just think like it's really smart how it was done, and I don't think they were like, oh, well, we have to work. Because I think in the show, the way they do it is you do it once and then she basically repeats the beginning at the end of the show. Mm-hmm. And the last time she does it is where you can see like, oh, she's super conflicted. Whereas at the beginning, I think she plays it play it pretty straight, just so you don't know. It's an
attend to the tale of Sweeney Todd kind of
correct.
thing. Yeah.
And so I thought like that whole sequence, the way she like gets like immediately, she like try the beginning, like, oh my God, I want to just play the fucking song. Jesus fucking Christ.
Isn't it nice to know that good will conquer evil? The truth we all believe by and by. I'll believe for
So she gets like interrupted and they have this shot of her where she like looks at them and is like, why are you interrupting me? Which is funny on its idea, on the idea of being like, don't interrupt me. Yeah. But also this is where she's like starting to realize this isn't going to end because Elphaba's dead. Like everybody, I think the thing about Glinda that's so fascinating is she continuously always is like, well, as soon as this messy part is over, then we're all going to go back to normal.
Yes.
And even in this, like, the truth we all believe will by and by outlive a lie for you. And she tries to say me, and it doesn't happen. The other thing that I think is fascinating about the song that I literally never thought about before I was listening to it today is that she sings a song called No One Mourns the Wicked, and she says the wicked die alone. She is fully alone during, like, she is the last person. She doesn't have Fiero. She doesn't have Elphaba. The wizard's gone. Madame Morrible's in prison. She is left completely alone. And I don't think that she's like the wicked character of the show. And I think that's why the show is so interesting. But it is like interesting to read it from that perspective that she's more talking about like herself than she is
also,
like necessarily
if you hold space for me for a moment, Adam, doesn't have to be only one wicked character in it. Just to say, I think we can call Glinda.
The wizard is the villain, Molly. The wizard's the villain. Okay.
I think we can call Glinda wicked in some ways. Even though she, I also want to shout out in this. So as I watched it, I was anxious about the high notes in this because I was like, Ariana Grande has quite a range, but like, is it a Kristen Chenoweth range? And
is it a soprano range or is it like a pop belty range?
Yeah.
Right.
And watching it in the theater, there were a couple times where I was like, it's a little airy, like it's not bad, but it's a little light. But as I listened to it that time, there's a real 1930s resonance to it that feels almost like it is a reference to Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. And we can talk about like this movie is already so steeped in lore. It's kind of crazy simply because it's part of this huge collection of a huge IP.
As I was aware, and when I tried to explain to a 9-year-old with no background, all of the layers
I have no idea.
You had to know. Yeah.
Because even if you go on to like Broadway, like theater people talking about this movie, they're already like, well, I wish she'd worn the blue dress. And technically Glinda the Good in the books wears a blue dress. And so that's why they had her in a blue dress in the thing. But Billy Burke, who played Glinda in the 1939 film, has that famous pink dress. And so they went with that idea. I mean, it is trying to thread the needle between
it has to refer to two different
materials, right? They're doing L. Frank Baum. They're doing the silver shoes. They're not ruby slippers in this, mostly because MGM has the like copyright on the silver slippers and you have to pay them if you want to use it. But they're also doing the Green Witch. I mean, the whole thing is predicated on the 1939 Green Witch version. Yeah. So I think it is interesting that it's like the most famous fan fiction ever created, technically.
Other than
it's 50 Shades. 50 Shades is right after, and then Twilight.
Okay, so that's No One Mourns the Wicked. I think it's great.
She was when she was auditioning for Glinda, she was currently at The Voice, like judging. She was a coach at The Voice, and she tells a story at the Kelly Clarkson show because they were both judges at The Voice at the same time. That she was
her and Kelly.
Yeah, her and Kelly. That she had asked she had asked the production company, the studio, to like crank up the heat. And Blake Shelton was like, why is it so hot in here? And she was like, I'm sorry, I have to sing opera tomorrow and it's so cold in here. And that was for the audition for Glinda.
I'm gonna pull that. Tomorrow. Yeah, I'm gonna pull that line with my coworkers when it's cold in my office.
I have an opera audition tomorrow.
I have to opera tomorrow. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Please. I want to talk about really quick too. I think they do the flashback of like Elphaba's childhood sequence really well.
Oh yeah.
Molly's also missed an entire portion on Twitter because she's not on it, where this girl went famous for her PhD about olfactory ethics and sense as bigotry. Sense ESCENTS, not SENSE.
Yeah.
And so there's this part when Elphaba is with baby Nessa Rose, who has the greatest line in this film.
Yeah.
And the other kids like start making fun of Elphaba and they call her like smelly. And so I left the theater and I was like, wow, olfactory ethics strikes again. This is the most, I can't even, it's not even worth explaining to you.
So it was basically like making fun of the idea that somebody wrote about.
Correct. You got it. Nailed it. Right on the money. Yeah. It's a bunch of right-wing people being like, this is why academia is bad.
Yeah. One day someone will skewer my dissertation, I'm sure. Great.
I mean, shout out to this girl. This is probably the most read PhD on earth at this point now. Like, because other like PhD grads have been like, listen, the only people who read mine were my like advisors and my mom. Oh, yeah. So shout out to her.
Fully 3 people have read my dissertation. So yeah.
And I liked that the addition, I think the addition and the visualization, and we'll talk about it with Dillman too, of the animals actually being animals and not people in animal costumes actually makes it feel way more serious, and you're so acutely aware of like what is being lost. And I think the addition of Dulcibert, which is this nanny character that Elphaba and Nessarose has, is like a really great addition.
Yeah. Helps you to understand the character, not that she needs a reason to be against bigotry, but like, you know, it does add another layer. I do want to talk about Munchkins and the interesting choice to have Peter Dinklage in this, but as a voice and not physically on screen. So I know that they said, I saw like a little behind the scenes thing just in promo material I happened to see before the film, where they talked about how for Munchkinland, they were like, we're not doing little people as Munchkins. Like Munchkin is a culture and like an aesthetic, but it's not like a physical trait. And I think that's great. I'm not saying they should have done all little people, but I felt like it kind of would have actually been nice to have some little people actors in it, because it historically was a role that was like done by people with disabilities. And so, there was like one moment where I thought maybe one of the characters was, but she was like in a shot without other people around. So I wasn't able to totally judge that. But like,
there are little people in the Emerald City during One Day More. Or One Short Day, not One Day More.
Remember the revolution that happened?
One day under the wizard. Okay. I don't know. Like, I was like, I don't know if they're trying to like kind of gesture towards that by casting Dinklage. Obviously, he's a great actor in his own right, and he's been in other musicals like Cyrano. But I don't know. I was wishing a little bit. I would be curious to know if there's been any commentary from like little people about how they feel about Munchkins in 2024. And, you know, I don't want that to be like erased as part of the history either. I thought it was great that they cast someone who really uses a wheelchair as Nessarose. And so, more representation, you know?
That's a huge change. I didn't mention that earlier. Nessarose is a massive change from the book. In the book, Nessarose has no arms.
Oh, wow.
So I think her like the shoes are like more important because that's like how she has her power or something. Because she is actually a witch in the books. She's not just like the governor of Munchkinland, which is what she becomes.
She's just studying.
Yeah. She like is actually a witch. But anyway, I forgot to mention that.
And wait, okay. I'm gonna talk about Fiyero for a second. So
please.
Elphaba and Nessarose, bisexual legend Fiyero. Elphaba and Nessarose are the daughters of the governor of Munchkinland.
Correct.
Glinda is from a family that's like of the West, whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
just
like
aristocracy.
Aristocracy.
Fiyero not really
is
like royal. A royal.
A winky prince.
They discover in the course of this musical that there is a pernicious plot to capture, kill, and silence animals, and that in this universe, animals are sentient beings who can speak, who become college professors, who can like accomplish all the same things that human being can, and that what they are trying to figure out is like what is happening, that animals are losing their ability to speak and they're disappearing, and it's very scary. And at no point does anybody say, let me use my political influence of being a prince of this nation. Like it never comes up. All of them appear to have serious political ties, at least parents who have serious political ties. And the best they can do is like, I'm going to just take this one lion cub and put him in the forest. They never talk about like, what could we use in terms of our influence and power in order to investigate and try to change this situation. Does that not seem odd to anyone else?
No.
Okay, great.
Not to me.
Cool.
I mean,
should we talk about this feeling or okay?
so popular.
And maybe it's just because I've read the book, but like, because a Winky Prince, think about it almost as like he's like the prince of like an indigenous tribe. Like it is not like he is the prince of the nation.
Okay, I think that needs more explanation in this musical. Especially
for sure.
The length of time between him being introduced as a prince and the animal plotline getting more serious. I was like, no one's like, hey, prince, do something about this.
Yeah. Because he also comes in with such an entrance that it does feel like, oh, he's revered, he's whatever. He's respected in that way.
Yeah.
Well, he's liked.
He's liked. He's kind of a playboy, right? Like that's kind of like his thing. He's like
I'm not shocked that Elphaba doesn't go to her tender, loving father and ask him for help. That doesn't totally shock me.
But she could ask Nessa Rose to talk to her. She knows that the dad would listen to Nessa. I'm just saying, like,
no, I know
it's weird,
but I also think it's supposed to be. You're still supposed to. There is a level at which, even in that scene with the lion cub and Dilliman getting escorted out, Elphaba's like, they tell her to be quiet, and then she just like sits back down, and she ends up like getting upset and doing the poppy thing, which I think is such a cool addition to this movie. But there's still like this, like, I think, well, maybe we're wrong. Like, I think what they capture really well is like that kind of like,
well, it can't be wrong because the wizard is saying it, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it's authority is kind of talking about it.
I do think that part of the plot is very strong. I think they do a really good job of telling the story of, you have just enough question marks to say, like, maybe there is something that I just don't understand or whatever. Yeah. But like, if not that I want to add any time to the movie, but like, if I could adjust it, I'd have a scene where like Elphaba tries to write a letter to her dad and he like shoots her down. Like, it felt like there needed to be some acknowledgement of like, they tried that path and it didn't work or something, instead of it just being like, well, we're just students, what can we do? So yeah. Should we talk about Fiyero?
God, please.
Oh my God.
The actual literal bisexual King Fiyero.
So I have told these boys many times to watch the second season of Bridgerton, and they've laughed at me every time.
It's the same horse, Molly.
But do you know what I want to say? Jonathan Bailey. Okay, great. I love it's the same horse. Jonathan Bailey is so hot, and he is so talented.
Famously.
And he's so gay.
And
he's very gay.
He's very gay, and I just don't think dancing is his strongest skill.
But I almost feel like it's on purpose. I mean, it felt on purpose. It felt like he's saying we're dancing through life, but like, I'm not dancing perfectly. It's like, we're just dancing to like enjoy life.
So here's maybe what I'm saying. He's very gay, and if you're interested in him not from a gay lens, then the dancing maybe makes him less hot. Does that make sense? I feel like maybe we shouldn't say this. Maybe I'm going to get canceled for saying this.
He's not masculine enough, Molly, for you? No, go ahead, say it.
Go ahead, say it. He's not a man.
I'm certainly not saying that. I'm certainly not saying that. I think that the dancing that he watches is meant to catch the attention of multiple female characters. And I am saying that as a woman, I wouldn't watch that and think, I bet he's interested in having a girlfriend. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think you would be able to watch any of it and be like, he's interested in having a girlfriend. I would watch that when he throws that man's head around. I would be like, oh, he wants to receive head from a fellow man.
I feel I've seen musicals. I've seen musicals before where men dance, and it doesn't make me go, oh, okay. I see why. I'm going to stop talking.
He's no Gene Kelly.
It's not a Gene Kelly. It's not a West Side Story situation.
Yes,
in terms of the dancing.
It's not a, what's his name from Challengers? Those of West Side.
It's not a Mike Face.
It's not a Mike Face charged dance.
I've seen feminine dancing done before in a way that maintains a certain level of masculinity that I felt that this dance didn't quite reach.
Do you just want to call him the F slur now?
No,
or when do you want to do that, Molly? I'm just curious.
I just think it is important that everybody kind of falls a little bit in love with Fiyero.
Yes.
That's what I'm actually trying to say. And I don't know that
the dancing does it.
I think maybe the dancing works really well on stage and like less well in a film for that. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. I'm walking myself back.
It does feel like,
I just saw a couple people take space.
But I am in queer media, so.
But I am in queer media.
No, Molly's in MAGA media, clearly, based on this conversation.
Dancing through life, swaying, sweeping, and always keeping cool. Life is fraughtless when you're thoughtless. Those who don't try never look foolish. Dancing through life, mindless and careless. Make sure you're wearless. Trouble is rife. Woes are fleeting. Blows are glancing when you're dancing through life.
now that we're talking about dancing, this is my biggest complaint about this film. I do not like the choreography of this film. We are in peak stomp era, like pop lock and jam and break choreography. And while I think I think it really works for like, what is this feeling? Like, I think that choreo like matches the beat of that song
because
so perfectly.
they're like it's us against her, you know. So they all kind of like stomp rhythmically away from her.
I kind of wish, what I like about the Oz story, the Oz books, all of it, is that like each place has a different culture. Like, I wish it felt like the Munchkins had a different style of dance than like the Emerald City. Like the Emerald City,
the Wiz does it.
The Wiz does it so well. The Wiz is, I still think, probably the best version of this, where it feels like each place has a different culture.
Totally. They're scary, but they are different.
Yes. We were in a subway station, and I was like, it was not the one that they filmed those things in. But I was like,
all I can think about is all of a sudden these pillars are just going to come down.
Do you think he's hot in this?
When he's not dancing, yeah.
Okay.
But not his hottest, but also it's not Bridgerton. So, you know, I'm not expecting a Bridgerton level of like romance on the hotness. Yeah,
it's not romance hot, but it feels more like we're kindred spirits. Like we kind of understand each other, that we're different in a way. But I think Fiyero in this movie, I mean, now that you've said that he's supposed to be kind of like more of an outcast than he appears in the...
They change it for the show. The show, it's very clear that he's like traditionally handsome. Everybody likes him, blah, blah, blah.
He's like the Prince Charming that has like a heart of gold, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, that learns...
He just doesn't have brains.
And he learns to... Oh my God, you're spoiling.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that he learns that he has more substance to him than he thought that he did is supposed to be. I guess I just think the whole... And this is spoiling a little bit for the second part, that like, I think the whole Fiyero plotline is a little bit weird in that it's like, it kind of creates tension between them, but not really. Like Glinda kind of lets him go fairly easily, which I think is good and mature, but like, it's also like, he's like there as like a tension, but not an actual conflict. And like, what is he really doing in the musical to some extent?
I think his biggest thing is that he serves in Act 2, because really up until this point, Elphaba has been so virtuous and so like morally correct that her finally like succumbing to the temptation of Fiyero and giving in to that is like her finally being selfish for herself. And that's, of course, that is where she gets her infamous "for the first time I feel wicked" line. But like, which I just saw someone do a TikTok and be like, what if every musical had this? And it was like, for the first time I feel hairspray.
This is making me think of a tweet that my friend did when Stranger Things first came out, that he was like, I don't know, it's pretty good, but I was wishing there was a part where somebody turned to the camera and said, I don't know, I've seen Stranger Things.
Remember when we watched True Grit in college?
Yeah. Why did we do that?
Because I got like free tickets to like to an early screening or whatever. Okay. But remember, what's her name? Haley Steinfeld looks to him, and he's like, I hear you're a man of true grit. I still think about that.
Wow.
So I think here's my take on Jonathan Bailey.
But I will say Fiyero in general, I did have that feeling when I remember watching the show. Like I was like, I mean, he's the great cat,
but it's right. But he is in the role that most women are in most musicals. Like he is the role that like completely underwritten, just nothing, just there to like be the love interest.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's what is like, so I think that's really, especially in 2003, what people were like reacting to about the show is that like, it does feel different. And like, yes, now it's so normie because it's been 21 years on Broadway where it just dominates every year. But like it is, at 21 years ago, it was like interesting to be like, oh, it's actually just a show about two women.
There's nothing wrong with like everyone's about putting the man in that role that the woman has been in. I'm just saying like those characters have never been strong, and I don't think that we need to do that every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do this for a little bit where we have the men do it, and then we'll finally get to a place where it's just everybody's
actually
written
write interesting
perfectly.
characters. Yeah.
So Jonathan Bailey, I think, is great in this movie. I actually really was sold. I do not care about the love story at all. I think it's like fine on stage, but I really think this is the first time I've ever liked I'm Not That Girl ever in my entire life. I think Cynthia's performance of this song, they said that like all the singing is live on set, Molly. I hate to tell you.
It works. I wasn't distracted.
It works, right?
Yeah.
It works. But they said that she like they all had in-ear. She has like an in-ear, obviously, so she can hear the music. And then the sound people have headphones of what they're hearing. They're picking up on the microphones. And they said like John Chu was saying like when they shot it, they would just all started crying.
All the sound guys were just crying.
She starts it so quietly that they couldn't even hear it in the set. They could only hear it on the microphones, like what she was singing. And her performance of that song is so introspective that you cannot do on stage. You cannot draw within that far because you just get lost. And because we have like you're 30 feet tall in front of me, I'm able to like see every
emotion, every like thought.
And she's so conflicted, and there is this sadness of the song that is, it's not even just, and I think maybe my reason for not liking the song is because 8th grade girls love to be like, oh my God, it's
me. I totally get it.
Whereas like, she is literally like,
all her life,
I will never have love because I am green. I will never, it's not just that, oh, she's prettier than me.
No.
I will never be that, I'm not that girl. I will never be that girl. It's never going to happen for me. And I think that was like the first time that I was like, oh, it's so sad.
Hands touch, eyes meet, sudden silence, sudden heat, hearts leap in a giddy world. He could be that boy, but I'm not that girl.
The other thing that's so sad is The Wizard and I, which is weird because it's such a great want song. Mm-hmm. It is like, because you know where this story ends, it's like heartbreaking. Knowing that like when she does it's like a little clever, I'd be so happy I could melt. But then like knowing that it's actually because she's going to die, or what you think is going to happen is that she's going to die at the end of this story. It is like so
the
sad.
Celebration throughout Oz. That's
excited.
All to do with me. Yeah. That's a very good, I think that while I was critiquing earlier that like, it can be every little detail of Wizard of Oz is being explained and set up. I think that song is a very good example of like a good level of dramatic irony because it means something to the character in the moment. It doesn't exist just to foreshadow things,
right?
But it also has those moments of foreshadowing in it that add another layer to it.
Yeah. It's also interesting because this movie like kind of added this layer that like she's a prophet, like she can kind of like see the future that is not in the show. Like
she sees the Dr. Dillerman.
She has that line in the song to begin with, so I feel like that's always kind of been in there, right?
She has it, but it never to me felt like she was like actually seeing it. It was more like this is my dream of what I see for my future.
But like this is like
but not like
whereas
I'm literally
like
seeing something.
This time it became very literal, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, it's my favorite song in the show. I really love The Wizard and I.
Wow. That's a good musical theater girly, like, B-side.
Yeah.
Showing that RJ's cool because he knows that one the best.
And I do love I genuinely love Ariana's version too. The like live version that she did.
From the 15-year reunion or the 15-year anniversary.
Get to the end, Tiva. Come on.
People see me there.
I mean, it's just such a classic I Want song. And her voice is so clean. I listened to this interview where she was saying, like, in Act 2, she's after her battle cry is when she like said that she like her Elphaba changes to be like more free flowing in terms of her melodies. Like she's not going to be as clean in her melodies.
I cannot wait to hear No One Mourns the Wicked. It's going to be
No Good Deed.
Oh, No Good Deed. Ooh, it's going to be all over the place in like a organized chaos way. I love it.
I loved this number. I think like the running in the field, the bluebirds and the rainbow in the background. Like it's just,
you get to see her have like
so
a Dorothy
emotional
moment, right? Like you get to see her be in this dream, like finally a dream that she can have.
Yeah. And she's so, I don't know, her Elphaba is just so intense, but like it's not overbearing and it's not
melodramatic.
Unwelcoming. Yeah. Yes. I just think like it's so, I don't know. She just does so well with this role. I walked out of this movie and I know there's been so much discourse about Ariana, especially because I think people really had low expectations of her going in, and she surpassed them so far that people are just talking about it. And she's like a really great comedic performance. It really is great. But Cynthia,
we know that Cynthia already has the chops, the caliber of like performing.
But also we know that because we're musical theater nerds, and I think the general public doesn't. True. And so it is really exciting that this movie is going to expose her to so many more people.
Yeah, totally. Her last, I can't. I've talked about this in every single conversation I've had about this movie, so this is going to sound like
repetitive from everyone that's listening to the Ampliverse.
But for the last 20 minutes of this film, which is just her going through every discovery in real time, realizing that the wizard is a fraud.
Yeah.
The way she plays it is so honest, and like you see every, like, it's disgust. It's like she's upset with herself for being hoodwinked by this. Like there's sadness to it. Like I was so floored by watching it. I believed every single beat of that performance in a way that you cannot do in the show because the pacing is so fast. Whereas in the movie, they allow those moments to have like the depth and breadth.
That was the extra hour of just her discovery. And I think also what's amazing about the naivete too that she brings to it, and the like the like earnestness of the discoveries, is that Cynthia Erivo is such a like dame in real life. Like she's so like proper and how she holds so much space, you know what I mean?
She holds a lot of space.
That I think that seeing her play this much younger character, if you're aware of her like real way of moving through the world, you're aware of how much she's acting in being so earnest, because that's like not really her. I'm not calling her disingenuous in real life, but like she's a very like held together person, and so seeing her play this like young and shocked character is very different.
I mean, genuinely, like that's what I was. That was what I was worried about for the Cynthia performance. Like we already think of her as so powerful. Her like presence it's so strong that like we have to believe that like no one likes her. Like no one feels that. No one feels that like they can take her seriously, and so even, like especially the Ozdust Ballroom like scene, like that, it's so heartbreaking to like see her so vulnerable, which like makes me like now I'm seeing like Color Purple, like the musical, like wish I saw her as Celie, because I feel like if I did see that, then I'd be like, oh yeah, I mean Celie also has kind of this like start from literally nothing to like being able to like stand on her own.
You can find bootlegs of her. What's the big song?
Makeup tutorial. I'm here. Oh yeah. I'm here. Girl.
It's life changing. She also did like a one-time performance. I don't remember who the actor was, but they did Last 5 Years. And
yes, I remember that.
I need that to be an album that I can fully download and listen to every song.
Yeah, she's
just one of the greats. I mean, truly. Yeah. I mean, she was in a movie that I felt like no one watched called Widows, and she was so good in it. She's also like she like was nominated for an Oscar for playing Harriet Tubman. Like she just has this like gravitas.
But it really, that's what I think what you were saying is like, I was worried that it was going to feel too gravitas-y,
right? Like
for this role, because Elphaba has to start basically as like a 20-year-old, like not knowing the world and feeling like really down about herself.
And like believing a wizard, like believing believing
that a man is going to fix all your problems.
Yeah. With Cynthia Erivo, definitely does not believe that. We all know that's
correct.
A fact.
No one should believe it.
No one should, but Cynthia Erivo, more than any of us, does not believe a man is going to fix her problems.
One of my favorite lines on my second rewatch of the movie was when Jeff Goldblum like comes out from behind the mask, and Ariana or Glinda goes, "A man." It's just such a stupid like realization.
When they tell the story about him like being able to read the Grimoire, and he's just chanting Omaha over and over again. So,
which shout out that Rita grew up in Omaha, so I'm sure she appreciates it.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out Rita.
Do we have any strong feelings about some of the other performances? Do we want to talk about Ethan Slater? Do we want to talk about Nessa Rose, Morrible, Wizard?
I feel I feel like Nessa and Bach both like their story like really in the second act. Yeah, it's really just the setup for their story. So we don't see a ton of them.
Yeah.
Madame Morrible, I was a little surprised that it was a non-singer, but then I realized it's not really a singing role. So I think just casting someone with gravitas was a smart move.
I did feel like Michelle, even though I love Michelle Yeoh, the performance sometimes felt like more statuesque, like more like authority figure-ish, right? Like that is the character, but like when she finally makes the flip at the end of like, oh, everything's revealed, I was like, that's when I felt like, oh, that I got really hooked into the performance. Yeah. And I really like Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard. I mean, that's why you hire Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, I think that was just like a strong, like he just was Jeff Goldblum, and that was what we wanted from him. I kind of feel the same thing with like Bowen Yang. Like he was great in his little comedic role, but like he's like, in my opinion, the strongest cast member on SNL. So yeah, I expected him to do a good job.
Yeah. I think the smartest thing about Jeff Goldblum is because Jeff Goldblum always feels like an alien. It's almost brilliant to make him the person who isn't from Oz.
Yeah,
like he feels like no one else here.
Yeah,
but like everyone loves, and you know, like because he's such a weirdo, but like there's something about him that makes me want to just like watch him.
I buy that people would just listen to what Jeff Goldblum says. You know, yeah.
It is funny because there is, now that I'm thinking about it, so the original Wizard in Wicked was Joel Grey, and there is something I think similar that they both have where they're able to do this like charming, goofy, like a little off kilter thing, but also there is like they can be menacing at this. It can be menacing
when they're aware of like how powerful, like, oh, people like me and I can actually use that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's kind of sinister, right?
Yeah, those are not two people you think of together, but when you put them side by side, and there's a similar energy. Yeah.
Because like obviously, that's what's so brilliant about Joel Grey's MC in Cabaret is that it is like it's weird, but also like something's really off about it, and that's what is like makes it so enthralling. And it's not a 1-to-1. The Wizard is way more charming than the MC, but there is a similar. I mean, they're both about fascism coming to power. So it just is so weird that this came out in 2024, isn't it?
I'm curious. The only time that I was nervous about having taken Simon to see it was when the flying monkeys thing happened, because it was like so gruesome. And I know that there are a lot of people who were scared of the flying monkeys in the original Wizard of Oz, which I was never really scared of them. Okay, I never found them particularly creepy, but in this one, I find them really frightening because of the way that they did it. But so you were afraid of them in the original too?
I mean, remember Adam was afraid of the Scooby-Doo ghosts.
Well, I'm afraid of everything in the Wiz, so I don't think I should really be speaking on this. Yeah.
And you don't watch horror movies.
And I don't watch horror movies.
So we're just three flighty cats.
Flighty cats.
I didn't like them. I wasn't like necessarily like scared of them. I just really disliked. There was something it wasn't that they flew either. I think it was because it was like guys in like monkey makeup that I was like, there's something very Uncanny Valley about it. And that was when I, as a 4-year-old, coined the term Uncanny Valley. So
wow, that
I
was you?
really at the forefront. That was
you.
Me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Born in South Bend, Indiana.
I liked Morrible. I liked the girl. I liked the girl who plays Nessa. So she. Okay, so this is going to spoiler for Act 2. So she is she uses a wheelchair and she is not ambulatory. So in the stage show, what happens is that Elphaba like enchants the shoes so that she can walk.
Right. And
then once she's able to walk, she's like, Bach, we can finally like officially be together because you don't need to like take care of me. And he's like, well, since I don't need to take care of you, I'm going to go. And I'm going to tell Glinda I love her. And then that's when she freaks out and turns him into the Tin Man. Or she she removes his heart, and then Elphaba has to save him by making him the Dead Man.
Yeah.
So they have said that she is not going. They're not going to like harness her. They're not going to stunt double her. They have like changed the story for Act 2. So I'm very interested to see what they do with it, because I'm glad they didn't like
make the story about like she
fixing.
feels like fixing. Yeah.
So that'll be really interesting to see what they do with it.
Although I will say, like, the original is not really like a fixing heroic moment either. Like, I don't think that's necessarily problematic to continue to do that version of it. But I'm interested to see what they do. Yeah.
And
I'm interested to see how she ends up obtaining the like black and white stockings, the like socks that she wears.
She wears some striped socks in this.
Does she?
Yeah, in one scene I noticed she had them on.
I hope there's a whole musical number just to explain the black and white stockings. That is my fear, genuinely, even though they didn't add stuff to add time to the runtime, is like it is 2 parts. Are they going to add a bunch of stuff in the second one to like make it a full length movie?
They've announced that they're adding 2. They've already written 2. They wrote 2 songs. It's already filmed. It's already filmed and shot. So they added 2 songs. I would assume it's a solo for each.
For both.
Yeah, probably.
That would be my guess.
They have a lot of solos already, but yes, that's probably what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Ariana, I feel like we haven't actually talked about her.
I feel like we have, but okay. What do we want to say?
She's great.
She's great.
Great.
Okay.
RJ, any thoughts on Ariana?
I mean, genuinely, like, it made me remember, like, the hair flip to me is so iconic Ariana, and it made me remember, like, oh my God, yeah, that's right. That's also, like, a big thing on stage.
Toss.
The toss. She was just, I don't know. It's so cool to see someone play 2 roles at the same time, right? Like, she is playing herself, like who Glinda is, and then also like the Glinda that people want her to be. And I think she did a really good job of like playing 2 at the same time. And every scene you could see when she would make the decision to be like, I'm public Glinda right now, and not like Glinda who is still doesn't even know like what I actually really think about all of these situations.
I think her comedic timing is really remarkable. It's
Nickelodeon, baby.
It's that Nickelodeon upbringing, you know, that'll get you. But we already knew that from her like guesting on SNL that she's really funny. Totally. Like, no one should be shocked by it, but it is different when you're like, I don't know, shooting a $150 million film with a lot of stakes on it. I think that she just threads the needle so well on a role that, as we already said, like feels like it's like it looks easy, but it is way more complicated than Elphaba, because Elphaba is just playing the like hero that we're gonna follow, and Glinda has to go from like a bitch, but you have to kind of think she's funny as a bitch, and she's kind of full of it. Like they do give her, I think the screenplay in the book, in the original musical, give her a bunch of lines that make it clear that she's like, you're supposed to laugh at her. Like when she has the like, one of my favorites is when she does the like, it's so weird, I didn't get my way. And then in this, like they pick her up and carry her out of the room, which is very funny. Like, I think it's very self-knowing, which is good. And then like when you start to see her turn, because they slowed down that entire Ozdust ballroom sequence, not only does it help Elphaba's story, but it helps Galinda's story to be like her, because she has the exact same beat in the show where she spins into her friends and they glare at her, and then she chooses to go back and keep dancing with Elphaba. But this, by them being able to be like, stop doing that, and she like looks at them and then it's like, no, and then like comes back, and then obviously they have the like crying moment. I think like just that sequence being able to breathe makes this movie like already sets this movie apart from the show, because it like everything makes way more sense. I think her popular is amazing. I'm going to play a part of it.
When I see depressing creatures with unprepossessing features, I remind them on their own behalf to think of celebrated heads of state or especially communicators. Did they have brains or knowledge? Don't me laugh. They were popular. Right! It's all about popular. It's not about aptitude. It's the way you're viewed. So it's very true to be very, very popular like me.
So here's the tea on this song. When they originally cast her, they were like, hey, so we're going to modernize the song. So they...
Oh, God.
So they said, oh, did I not copy it? Oh, I thought I did. Anyway, so here it is. Steven Schwartz wanted to modernize Galinda's big number popular by giving it more of a hip hop style rhythm.
No.
Ariana Grande was dead set against the suggestion, saying, absolutely not. Don't do it. I want to be Glinda, not Ariana Grande playing Glinda. And then obviously they just do. It's like basically the exact same.
I mean, that goes to what you were saying about her, right, Molly? That like she loves
musical theater.
She loves musical theater. She's like, I'm doing this musical theater.
It's so funny. I didn't know that. And I was about to say, Popular is a great song, but it's also kind of boring because there's only really one way to do it. But I'm really glad that they did it the way that you're supposed to do it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
This song is Christian Chenoweth, like, made it in a lab and put it out in the world. And it has to be done this way every time. And it would just be wrong to try to change it up. Like, this is what it is.
I've listened to Steven talk about this song before. NPR, they do their Tiny Desk concert, and they did do a Wicked Tiny Desk concert. And I watched it because Steven played the accompaniment for it. And he talked about how this song, because they obviously did this one, he said that like he wanted to use like Kristen's natural, like she has like a background in yodeling, which is like some of it's a little yodely, which is like for her. But also there's like this bubblegum pop, like almost kind of like early Beatles energy to it, like this kind of like rhythm that like he really wanted to fixate on, because it's just like the most popular generic kind of music there is. And so he was like, it's like perfect for a song that's like about like just be likable, just be as likable as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And it's I think the whole number is like immaculate in the movie. The way every joke that is from the show is there, but it's changed just slightly enough that it feels like fresh and new. And I would not be surprised if she won the Oscar. To be quite honest. Also, typically, like the supporting actress in musicals is the one that wins, not the main actress.
I don't know that this is an Oscar film for what the Oscars are now, but it's great. I think in like the span of Oscar history, it could deserve it, but I just don't know that they're gonna give acting Oscars to a musical.
Well, they just did for Emma Stone not 8 years ago.
Okay, that's fair.
Maybe it's time.
For a goofy musical, I don't know, goofy role in a musical.
Yeah,
we'll see. Can we talk about Defying Gravity? This is such a long podcast.
Can we hold the fucking space already? No, Adam wants to talk about Sentimental Man.
Oh, man. You're torturing me.
So if you care to find me to the western sky, has someone told me lately, everyone deserves a chance to fly. And if I'm flying so low, at least I'm flying free. To those who ground me, take a message back from me. Tell them how I'm defying gravity. I'm a flying high, defying gravity. And soon I'll match the memory now.
I mean, what am I supposed to say about that? It's oh my God.
I mean, the fact that they used the note, right, in pretty much every marketing, the very first trailer that we saw, we heard it already, or a little bit.
The battle cry?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, we know, we've heard it. We know how she's going to do the rip, but still feel like you heard it for the first time when you watch the whole sequence. It's like, it's so... I get it. I get holding space for the lyrics. I really do.
This is, I'm going to be probably the biggest
nerd
contrarian for this number in this movie. And by that, I mean, I think I understand as little about like what you said about, I understand that in order to like kind of wrap everything up, they have to cut away and set up the things that they need to set up.
Yeah.
But I do think it breaks the flow of the song in a way that I don't think aids the song. I think it helps the end of the film.
Yeah.
But the song itself, I think, is like broken, and then I feel like I keep having to restart the motor.
Yeah. Oh no, I feel exactly the same way.
They are doing a shorter edit for all of the like big songs, of taking out all of the big dialogue chunks that they've inserted in the movie.
Yeah,
like a
for the soundtrack,
edit,
but
basically
the
for
soundtrack.
the soundtrack. Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. It's like such a strong song, but I don't know if it can even contain that much plot. I wish that they had like almost just done like an intro to the song and then like cut away to all those scenes and then we just do the song.
Yeah. The only other thing is like I understand. I know that she did a lot. She did all of her own stunts for this, which is so cool and so crazy. But there is, I'm going to be really honest. There is nothing that's ever going to beat being in a theater and watching someone like fly in person, as opposed to like being on a green screen and watching someone. And I think it's really cool, and I think it's really well done. And like, I think the visuals are amazing, but it just, I still know in my head, it feels more fake than it. I mean, it is more fake than it is on stage, but like, I wish there was like a way to have retained a little bit of like the tactileness. And I know there's the one shot where her cape has become like the biggest. It's so funny because it makes no continuity sense.
It makes no continuity sense.
I assumed they were going to cut that part.
It's specifically a reference to how big her cape becomes on stage, like to hide the cherry picker. And that's fine. It's very funny. But
it's funny because I just assumed that was on purpose. That like, I literally was like, oh, her magic created a huge cape.
Sure, why not?
Sure. Who cares? Sure. I think that's the only thing missing for me from Defying Gravity is like the like awe of, I think, seeing it in person, but there's just nothing. I don't think there's anything that we could have done to make me feel like I'm seeing it in person.
It's gonna do no. I do think for the movie that they showed us, for the story that they were trying to tell about Elphaba, I did feel like what they did served that well. Like I wouldn't say this was like the right way to do it, because I think like the song is so good that if you had been able to like just give just the song in its entirety without all of the breaks in the middle, it would have been really interesting to watch.
But I think they just, I think it's so. But I do want to say like all of their stuff at the beginning of their argument and everything, that works so well. And there's the moment when basically Glinda has been like, oh, I'm not going with you.
Yes.
And they share this look, and like Elphaba like winks at Glinda. And
it's like she always knew. It almost feels like she always knew that she wasn't going to go with her.
Never going to go with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think that's, I think that a smart viewer, I mean, because you know that they end up on different paths, but also like a smart viewer of everything we've seen of Glinda, like it's a consistent character choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that it's not that like Elphaba's upset, because she also still doesn't know what's going to come. Like she doesn't know how bad it's going to get.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get so much worse before it gets better, quote unquote. Yeah. And she just thinks like there's no way she would know that Glinda's going to like sell out and then also start working for the wizard too. Like she just thinks like, oh, Glinda's just not able to like come do this with me, but she's still going to like fight the good fight on the ground or something.
And she knows that, I mean, honestly, it's this moment where she realizes like, because I have built myself up to be able to do this all on my own. It's this moment of like, I am really the only one that can do this. Like genuinely. Yeah. I do feel like that Elphaba feels that way by the end of the song.
Is that it? We done?
That's it.
Great.
That's it. Gravity's Defied.
The last thing I wanted to say is the guy who sings that weird middle sequence during One Short Day where they like tell the story of the Grimoire. Yeah. The like main Emerald City player or whatever the fuck. Uh-huh. He is Stephen Sondheim's long-term partner. And he was an understudy for Fiero on Broadway.
Really?
And this is how I found out Stephen Schwartz.
I was like, oh my God.
Sorry. Stephen Schwartz. And I also didn't know Stephen Schwartz was gay. I mean, I could have assumed, but I wasn't
from his body.
I mean, I would have just guessed, but yeah. I've never even seen a picture of him, but I would have just guessed based on him writing Wicked. So,
well, he's in the movie. He's the guy that says, "The wizard will see you now." That's Stephen Schwartz.
Nice.
everybody, in all of us. No wizard that there is or was is ever gonna bring me down. I hope you're happy. Bring me
%, on Rotten Tomatoes. Aisha Harris from NPR. The allegories of minority persecution are rendered even more palpable by the fact of casting Erivo, a black woman, in the role as the Wicked Witch of the West. To date, only one black actress has played her in an onstage production full-time, Alexia Kadime in London's West End over a decade ago, and again in this current production. By coding the outcast turned political agitator as black, her hair is in micro braids, and save for the green makeup, Erivo's facial features are fully visible. The realities of the world we live in are inescapable. Her green skin is an outward manifestation of her twisted nature, a character proclaims to the people of Oz at one point, riling them up to position Elphaba as the common enemy. Arguing that her skin, who she is reason enough to demonize her, it isn't altogether different from, say, recent rhetoric used to target Haitian immigrants in Ohio. For all its virtues and relevance, however, it's curious that in this 2-hour, 41-minute adaptation of the first act of the show, longer, it should be noted, than the entire stage production without intermission, little of substance was added to justify making this affair a two-parter. Chu and screenwriters Whitney Holtzman and Dana Fox stay quite faithful to the source material, which Holtzman also wrote, and there are no new songs to go alongside all of composer Stephen Schwartz's original ones. Reportedly, Part 2 will have some new songs, which may be for the best considering Act 2's numbers suffer in comparison to the stacked first half. There are a few attempts to incorporate more of Maguire's excessive lore from the book, and other secondary characters like Elphaba's younger sister Nessa Rose and romantic interest Fiero aren't fleshed out any more than they are in the show. That was Aisha's big criticism, was that it's too long. That's actually a lot of the general criticism from critics, was that it's too long. Fair. I picked this one. I hate this review. I think absolutely all of it is dog shit, but I'm going to read it. Nicholas Barber from the BBC. If you're not already a devotee of the musical, though, you may not be converted. The film ends with a song called Defying Gravity, so it's only fair to say that that's precisely what Wicked doesn't manage to achieve. It doesn't take flight. It doesn't have the terrific jokes, the startling twists, or the stunning dance routines that might have cast a spell on you. And it's weighed down by underdeveloped subplots and underused supporting characters, who presumably have their moment in Part 2, as well as by its own sense of self-importance. With every lung-busting empowerment anthem, Wicked seems to be declaring that it's a significant work of art. And yet the message about not mistreating people just because they have green skin isn't exactly subtle, and the questions the film answers aren't exactly urgent. Why does Elphaba wear a pointy hat? Why did Galinda change her name to Glinda? How can the flying monkeys fly? Why is the yellow brick road yellow? These aren't the most vital issues in the world, but if you are keen to see a Wizard of Oz prequel, I'd recommend Sam Raimi's Oz the Great and Powerful, which came out in 2013. Ew. I need this man to be fired from his job.
Wasn't that like a panned film? The Oz the Great and Powerful was James Franco as the Wizard of Oz?
Correct.
Okay.
I hated every part of this review. There's one part where he's like, it's just so like, we need to be told in 2024 that being a different color isn't bad.
Yes.
Are you aware of the world? Yes. Do you see anything outside of the end of your own nose?
I mean, also okay, so maybe he really doesn't know what happens in the second act, and I can see why some of that feels flat if you don't. But unfortunately, that is a story that continues to need to be told, and also that's not the only the whole perception of evil thing is a lot more nuanced of a story than just bad to discriminate against the green skin. That's not what's happening.
It's also that's what starts it, and then that's not what the story it's so clearly about the abuse of power and the way power can corrupt and be used to villainize specific groups of people. It's actually so clear that it's a commentary on fascism that it couldn't be more clear.
And what we were talking about with the animals of just enough area to say like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something, maybe I shouldn't challenge this. Like, hello,
my dude, you're doing it right now.
And like,
hello.
These things happen, right? Why is her hat pointy? Why does she change her name to Glinda? Right? Like these are all things that happen, but that is because it's using this structure of the Wizard of Oz to tell the story about the movie is not, the point of the movie is not to give a prequel to the Wizard. Like it's a theme. Okay. I hated this review. I was so mad when I was reading it. Okay. Anyway, shocking that the British don't know what's going on. Richard Lawson from Vanity Fair writes, or at least the finale was stirring to someone like me, for whom these melodies conjure up memories of an old wonder of a younger self. Because it is difficult to separate one's mind from one's heart, I am struggling to imagine how Wicked might land for the audience members the film needs to attract in order to flourish commercially. Those who are not familiar with the original show, who did not have the same Pavlovian nostalgic theater kid response to the first fanfares of horns and tinkling bells that announce each beloved song. Just how supplementary is the Wicked movie to cherished memories of seeing the show, of listening to the soundtrack with equally geeky friends 2 decades ago? I suppose box office receipts and online audience scoring will answer those questions soon enough. But I hope that Wicked is able to make that great leap, casting a spell on all on the necessary quadrants so that it may provide a reliable roadmap for any future such endeavor. Wicked succeeds because of some unreproducible lightning in a bottle convergences of directors, stars, craftspeople, and high-status material. But Wicked also makes a broader case for patience and careful thought, for grand ambition honed over the course of many years. In order to defy gravity, gravity must first be understood. He liked it. That's the point. Here's what people are saying on Letterboxd. 4 stars from Sophie. Historians will say they were good friends. 5 stars from Dill Abel. Filipino karaoke bars are not ready. And Vasily gave it 5 stars. Ariana Grande speaks fluent Christian Chenoweth. I could have done like 6 more pages of these. These were great. The recent ones are always fun. MVPs, I'm going to go first. I'm taking Cynthia Erivo. Thank you so much. She's perfect. I have no notes. I loved this portrayal. I think she brings so much to the character that hasn't rarely been there before. And because we're able to linger on her like close-up shots of her, I think she turns in like a groundbreaking performance. RJ.
Oh no. No, I'm just going to take the other one.
Yeah, I'll take Ariana, but I really was going to pick Cynthia as well.
Okay.
I'll take Ariana, the hair flips, the comedic timing, the love for Glinda. Like, she genuinely loves this show, this musical. And I think that's been our big review, right? Like at the base level, the people making the Cinemusicals should love the Cinemusical that they're making. And I do feel that everyone in this project loves the source material, what it's about, what it's trying to do. So
yes,
especially Ariana.
Molly.
Then I will take the only other logical choice, which is John M. Chu. I think emerging
the third witch.
The third witch. I think emerging as one of the great music theater Cinemusical directors of our time.
Yes.
Just put the dang thing on film, and that's what we wanted from it.
Right. Yeah. We're 2 on 2 on the Choosicals.
Yeah, the Choosicals.
I also just, like you were saying, like, she loves it. So I think it's also like, the other thing I didn't really say is, like, you can tell that Glinda and Elphaba like love each other. And because the movie is so long, you do actually believe that they like have become really close friends, which is really nice. You can see
an arc of a relationship for sure.
Molly, do you have one, or are we just closing?
No, I have one.
Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
What would you major in at Shiz University?
No, I was going to say we're gay and we're talking about people who take themselves too seriously. So I'm going to add in a new pop star element and say, if you had to cast Chapel Roan in a movie musical, what would you pick?
Annie, right?
Annie, Get Your Gun.
Annie. Oh.
Yeah. I think we're ready for an Annie, Get Your Gun.
Is there a musical version of The Children's Hour?
Oh my God. You're so stupid.
I feel like I don't know the musical Hair very much, but I feel like that's the right vibe.
Yeah. But it would be an ensemble show, so we would have to get people that can match Chapel.
Put her in Shucked.
Sure.
Shucked.
The Corn musical.
The Corn musical.
I don't know that one. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's new.
It's okay. It's new. Or she would do like a great like 808 Annie.
Oh, yeah. That could be fun, actually.
Yeah. She would be a great like secondary comedic.
No, she should be
Golden Age.
I don't think she could. I don't know if she could sing it. I don't know if she has this range, but she should be Lily in Kiss Me Kate because she sings I Hate Men. And then we could just lean into it that we could do a gender bent and we could make it that what's his name is a woman. So then
okay. Or we could cast her because she's a drag queen as Tracy's mom in Hairspray.
Biodrag.
Ooh.
Biodrag.
Yeah.
Think about it. Bio Queen. She does drag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, this was really a thing we did for 5 hours now, I think.
So.
Great.
We have hopefully taken up all of your Christmas with Wicked.
I mean, that's the thing. People are going to take all of the time to listen to this episode.
Yeah.
For each hour of this, we're taking a month. So that's how long you'll know that we're going.
So just pause it after you get to the first hour.
Mm-hmm. Listen to this in January. Yeah, listen to this in January.
Yeah. And we'll be back in the spring.
Yeah, we love y'all. You can keep emailing us.
Please
we're just taking
us.
a little hibernation break.
And email us movies that you would like to see.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, because I'm not playing a trailer at the end of this because I don't know what we're gonna pick next.
It's gonna be silent. All right.
Happy
Adam,
Christmas, everyone.
Loathing, unadulterated loathing for your face.
Your clothes. No.
Your voice. Oh my God. Bye. Thank you for listening to Showgays, a Cinemusical podcast. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find the Ampliverse on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at the Ampliverse. Check out our full roster of shows at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email, and we might just read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we'll be watching next episode.
I know a dark, secluded place, a place where no one knows your face. A glass of wine, a fast embrace. It's called Hernando's Hideaway. Ole!
Just knock 3 times and whisper low that you and I were sent by Joe. Then strike a match and you will know you're in Hernando's Hideaway.
The screen flashes with excitement as Warner Brothers happily lights the world of entertainment with new brilliance in the George Abbott and Stanley Donen production of
The Pajama Game is the game we're in, and we're proud to be in the Pajama Game. We love it, we can hardly wait to wake and get to work at 8. Nothing's quite the same as the Pajama Game.
Not at all in love, not I, not a bit, not a mite, though I'll admit he's quite a hunk of guy.
Hey there, you with the stars in your eyes.
Love never made a fool of you. You used to be too wise.
Introducing Professor Vernon Hines, master of the flying blade.
Can you knock the apple off my head, Hinesy?
1, 2, 3.
I think you're wonderful, and I love you. But we're in for a lot of trouble.
No, baby, why should we be?
Because something's going to come between us.
I think I'll take a nap. Oh, I see you. You don't need to drop anything.
You abandoned woman, you hussy!
After the way you behaved, taking your pants off in Mr. Hassler's office.
I got Steve.
heat, but I need your love to keep away the cold. Boink, boink. Boink, boink.
There was a man who loved a woman. She was the one he slew a dragon for. They say that nobody ever loved as much as he. But me, I love you more.